Educating, informing, serving. FEC TV, keeping government honest.
First announcement, as always, is Green Up Day, which will be Saturday, May 4th. Bags will be available at the Town Hall. The annual rabies clinic will be held Saturday, March 23rd from 10:30 a.m. to noon at the Town Garage. It will be hosted by the Rockingham Veterinary Clinic and cost is $10. Dog licenses are available at that time as well. I'm not aware whether we have a Doyle poll this year. The box is up there, but I didn't see any of the questionnaires, so there might be a Doyle poll and there might not.
There is none.
No, the word is that the Doyle poll is no more. That is definitely the changing of an era. My plan is to continue to move through the meeting till about 11:45 or noon, depending on what's happening at that point. I will try to break between articles, but if it's going to push us much beyond noon, I might have to break the discussion. I don't like to do that, but we'll try to break between articles. And we will take 45 minutes for lunch, starting at about noon. With all of that said, the next step is to hear what our legislators have been up to. So if we could get those of our senators and representatives who are here to come forward, we'll get a brief update on what's happening in Montpelier.
Hi folks, I'm Nader Hashim. I have the honor of being first here. I also lost my voice for a day, so I'm going to try to keep this short while I keep recovering. So first and foremost, I want to spend a part of the few minutes that I have thanking all of you for the opportunity to serve you in Montpelier. You know, very often when I'm sitting in the General Assembly trying to organize my thoughts about the million different topics that are coming my way, I take a few minutes to reflect on the magnitude of my responsibility as your state representative. And during that reflection, I remind myself of how grateful I am that I have this opportunity, and how grateful I am that you trust me to do this job effectively. So thank you. And with that being said, I want to move on to some of the bigger things that we've started tackling in the House of Representatives. So I've been in the Judiciary Committee since the start of this session, and one of the bills that occupied a lot of our time was H57, and this is a bill that protects women's access to reproductive health care. And as you can imagine, there was a lot of controversy as well as misinformation that was spread about this bill, and I'm happy to answer any and all questions as I linger around here for the next few hours. So what I will tell you is this. This is a bill that we passed in the House which codifies the current status quo of what has been Vermont's practice when it comes to women's reproductive health care for the last 46 years. There is a legitimate fear that Roe v. Wade might be overturned, and in the event that that happens, it becomes the default responsibility of states to regulate women's access to reproductive health care. So Vermont has taken the preemptive step of saying everything that we've been doing for the last 46 years, we're just going to keep on doing that into the future. So another issue that we've addressed is the closing of a loophole in domestic violence cases. Before the session started, I was asked by Representative Sibilia of Londonderry to help on H7, which is a bill that was also passed unanimously in the House just a few weeks ago. This bill allows prior offenses from other states to be taken into consideration during police investigations and during the court system when a person is arrested and taken to court. So we already apply this practice to other different crimes, such as DUIs and violations of abuse prevention orders, and I believe it's important that we hold serial domestic abusers responsible for their actions while also affording victims more protection. And just a few days ago, my committee began work on a bill that would guarantee that all folks in Vermont have access to a public defender for minor misdemeanors. And some of you may not know that, but public defenders are not guaranteed for all people who enter the court systems. And I strongly believe that no matter who you are or what crime you've committed, you have a right to a lawyer and you have a right to a fair trial, as it's written in our Constitution. Now, onto a different genre. At the start of the session, I became a member of the Climate Solutions Caucus, and I've also supported legislation that would prohibit the creation of any more large-scale fossil fuel infrastructure. And no one needs to be a climate scientist or expert to know that climate change is real, it's influenced by human activities, and if we don't act on it, it will negatively affect our future generations. And I also recognize there's a number of other issues that folks are concerned about, whether it's broadband, affordability, opioid addiction, or state and town infrastructure. And I want you all to know that these are issues that we are aware of, and we keep them in our minds as we are going about our daily business. And I also believe in open communication. So there are a number of ways that you folks can keep in touch with us. You can call the State House and literally just say to the person on the other end of the phone, I want to deliver a message to Representative Hashim or anybody else, and they'll get that message to us within a few minutes. Email and phone calls are also great, and if we don't get right back to you, just give us a day or just email us again, and I promise we'll get back to you eventually. And again, thank you all for the opportunity to serve you in Montpelier.
The presence of a small person scampering around reminded me that I was also supposed to announce that there is childcare available. It's over in the home ec room. We also have both of our senators here today, so I guess Becca's going to go next.
Good morning. So those of you who don't know me, I'm Becca Ballant. I live in Brattleboro with my spouse and 2 children who attend public school in Brattleboro. And before I get started with my notes about what I've been up to, I just want to say what a pleasure it's been for all of us to have Nader join us at the State House. He's doing a phenomenal job, and you are well served. So I continue to serve on the Economic Development and Housing Committee, and this year I was also appointed to the Committee on Finance in the Senate. And we spent a lot of time in the Economic Development Committee talking about our omnibus housing bill. This is coming on the heels of a very successful housing bond that we passed last session to try to meet our acute housing needs across the state. We know that strong investments in housing are a huge boon to economic development, and we're going to continue that work. We've already seen several very successful housing projects be funded by the housing bond that we passed, including 2 in my home district in Brattleboro. This new bill proposes another significant housing bond. It increases the hugely successful I'm having trouble this morning, not enough coffee. Down payment assistance program for first-time home buyers. We know that this is a significant challenge for our younger Vermonters who are coming out of school with incredible debt, and they just can't scrape together the money that they need for down payment on a first-time home. And so we have increased funding to that program twice. We're going to do it again. We're also going to be expanding the scope of the downtown tax credit program and the collection of owed taxes on short-term rentals. We've made significant strides in gathering short-term rental taxes for some of the short-term rental platforms, but not all of them, and we're working with our tax department to make sure we close that loop. We're also working strongly with the administration, with the Scott administration, to secure funds for grants for rehabbing apartments that are no longer on the market because they're not up to code. And so it's one of the times when we really are reaching across the political aisle and saying, we all have the same goals. You're gonna get some of what you want. We're gonna get some of what we want. The end goal is to get more housing on the market, both for renters and for owners. Another big focus of our work has been continuing to really shore up support for privacy protections for Vermonters. So we're working on a bill that would direct the state to conduct a privacy audit concerning the collection and the use of citizens' private data. This is coming after the huge Equifax breach in which thousands of Vermonters had their privacy information corrupted. We're going to also try to adopt a student online privacy protection bill and expand the definition of what is personally identifiable information so that we can ensure that customers of any segment across the industry will receive notification when their privacy has been compromised. And there are significant gaps when businesses in Vermont do not feel that they need to notify you when they have experienced a privacy breach. So we're really trying to put pressure on them and raise the standards, not just in Vermont, but for the whole industry. We're also, once again, we pass a minimum wage increase in the Senate. It's not clear how that will fare in the House. I've been talking to my colleague in the House, who's the majority leader in the House, about whether they have the votes for a minimum wage increase in the House. It's not clear, but we did have a strong vote coming out of the Senate. If you recall, we passed one last session, but it was vetoed by the governor, and we didn't have enough votes to override the veto. So more information needed from the House about what will happen on that front. Turning to my work in the Finance Committee, one of the reasons I wanted to be appointed to Finance is because of all of our significant issues related to telecom. I'm very, very concerned that our rural communities are not going to be able to survive over the next few decades if we don't put significant investment, not just into broadband concerns and telecommunications related to cell phone coverage, but we really need to be investing in structures that are not going to be obsolete in a few years. So we're really trying to shift our focus away from copper infrastructure related to broadband and moving more towards fiber connectivity, which is really no longer a luxury for our businesses and for our students and our schools. This is like the electrification initiative in the 1930s. We need to put significant resources and energy into tackling this problem. I could mention so many other topics that we are addressing in the Senate. The last one I want to talk to is something that is near and dear to my heart. I approached my Senate colleagues after Jamal Khashoggi was murdered. He was a columnist for the Washington Post, dissident from Saudi Arabia. And I said to my colleagues, this is not a partisan issue. We ought to be able to get every single senator on board to say that we do not condone violence against journalists. And I'm proud to say independents, progressives, Republicans, Democrats, we all came together and said, we will not be a nation that condones violence against the free press. My understanding is that we're all going to be in the cafeteria for a while during this meeting if people want to come and talk to us individually. I'm now going to turn it over to my colleague, Jeanette White. Thank you.
Thanks. Hi, for those of you who don't know me, I'm Jeanette White. This is my, I hate to say it, better? Okay. This is my 17th year. I never thought I would say that. Thought I might be there for 6 years maybe, but here I am. Anyway, it continues always to be an honor to be serving you and to have your faith in me, I hope. I serve on the Judiciary Committee in the morning, and we're working on always looking at reforming the entire criminal justice system, but our prisons in particular. And I know there's been a lot of talk about the number of prisoners we have and who's there and who shouldn't be there. I put together a little sheet here if any of you have specific questions about who's in prison and who isn't in prison and who's in detention. So it's a breakdown and some of the things we've been doing to reduce our prison population. As Becca said, we'll be in the cafeteria for a while. So in the afternoon, we also just, coming out of Judiciary, passed finally, well, for the 5th time out of the Senate, a cannabis tax and regulate system. This is the 5th time we've passed it in the Senate, and we're hoping that this year it will make it through the House. We'll wait and see. we're doing some things around consumer protection. There are some, I'm going to give you a little example of a standard contract. When you buy something or you get a job, or there's a contract that you have to sign and you accept the conditions of that contract, and you probably don't read the entire thing. So we saw one employment contract that said in the fine print that if you want to file a sexual harassment complaint against somebody, you have 6 hours from the time that it happened. You have to go to Nevada to have it mediated. You can choose an arbitrator from their list of arbitrators that happen to all be VPs of their company, who charge $1,000 an hour. You have 1 minute to do a deposition, and you've given up your right to a jury trial. So those are the kinds of things that are included in standard form contracts, whether you're buying something or getting a job. And so we just passed out of the Senate a bill that would make them unenforceable in Vermont. Thanks. One of the Government Operations Committee that I chair in the afternoon deals with what I think of as the foundation of our democracy. Elections, the structure of government, municipal issues, all of that. And we also deal with the military, and one of the growing problems that we're seeing across the country, not just here, is our returning men and women who are having increasing health problems due to the burn pits in the 4 theaters that they served in. We've now had the 3rd death among our guardsmen returning that is attributed to the burn pits. So we are looking at how we can work with the Guard, with our federal delegation, and with the vets to make more awareness of this issue and to hopefully increase the medical services, the treatment for them. We do not want this to turn into another Agent Orange, which took many, many deaths and many years before they were willing to acknowledge it. So we've been working with all of those people to do that. And then of course, there is always the issue of education. I'm not on the education committee, but I'm sure some people will want to talk about education, so we'll be out there. In the Senate, we start constitutional amendments, and I don't know if you know how that works, but a constitutional amendment can only be introduced every other biennium, so every 4 years. This is the biennium for it. They start in the Senate, they come out of a committee, they're dealt with just like a bill. They come out of a committee, they go to the floor of the Senate. We need 20 people in the Senate. There are only 30 of us. We need 20 people. Even if there are only 21 people there that day, we need 20 votes to pass it. It then goes to the House where it needs a majority vote. Then the next biennium, with some new legislators, it comes back. It has to have a majority vote in the Senate and in the House. Oh, by the way, when it gets to the House, they can't do anything with it. They can't make any amendments. It is as it comes out of the Senate. And then the next general election, it goes out to the population for everybody to vote on. So that's the arduous journey of a constitutional amendment, which is by design by our framers, and I think it works well. We have so far about 7 constitutional amendments this year. I'm sure we'll have probably 7 more. Whether we deal with all of them or not, I doubt we will. But if anybody has any questions about those, feel free to ask. And I just have to say that last year when we were here, I think we spoke about how very difficult it was working with the administration, because they didn't cooperate with us, they didn't come to our meetings, they didn't weigh in on issues, and as Becca said, on one of the issues she's working on, they are coming to the table. I've seen that more and more with all of our issues, and in my committees, the administration is coming, they're weighing in, they're trying to work with us, so it is a much better relationship this year, I believe. And thank you again. We'll stick around if you have any questions.
Good morning. I want to thank you all for the opportunity to come and take some of your time up and share these reports, and especially want to thank you for the opportunity once again to serve you. It's a pleasure and it's an honor to serve you, and this is democracy in action, and I just love coming here and participating in, and then telling people around the country when I'm at conventions for state legislatures, this is what we have in Vermont. So let's keep this going and keep it vibrant. I also want to thank my colleagues. We have a great county delegation. We meet every 2 weeks so we communicate with each other, because sometimes we get so busy we can't otherwise. And it's really been a great way for us to share what we're doing and stay in touch with you. And I also want to thank and welcome Nader. Nader has been a great addition. He's doing some hard work. And one thing he didn't mention, that outside the legislature, he's also part of the Fair and Impartial Policing Committee. And they're doing some really important work that needs to happen in Vermont. They're looking at the way we handle race relations, gender orientation relations. And as Vermont moves forward, these are essential pieces to help us move deeper into the 21st century. So I want to thank him for his work on that. We have a newsletter in the back, and that has our contact information and some other information. And if you look in the back, there's 2 other state representatives here, Carolyn Partridge and Matt Schreiber. The way House districts are drawn up, they have that slice of North Westminster, so they are part of your representation delegation, so I'm glad that they're here too. It's been busy. One of the things that we've talked about is it feels like from the day we got there, it was full speed ahead in the legislature, and I guess that's the way it should be, but it's kind of left our heads spinning. There's 14 standing committees in the House, 13 in the Senate, and we are all working on things that hopefully will make life better here in Vermont, from agriculture to environmental protection, education, and economic development. In the last election, one of the things that happened in Vermont was you gave us a bigger majority in the House and Senate. And that, I think, is what has compelled the governor to be more cooperative this year. And as we look ahead in 2 years, we want to start doing the work to make sure we can provide that kind of majorities in both the House and Senate in Washington, too. One of the things that has also been clear is that our job, I think, in Vermont is to try and keep things stable against the flood of chaos that seems to be coming almost every day from Washington. And I think we're doing a pretty good job, but what we need to do is make sure we don't let that behavior become the normal. Elijah Cummings ran a hearing the other day in a very, very positive way. And at the end of the hearing, I think what he said was, can we get back to being normal? And I think that's one of the things that I want to aspire for us to do here in Vermont and across the country. One of the more important things that we do is as we look forward, is address what I call climate chaos. I'm also part of the climate caucus we have in Vermont. These are legislators that outside the regular committee are meeting to share best practices, what we're hearing from our constituents, what we're hearing from in the field. Quite literally, one of the more important things is the regenerative soil programs. And last year, UVM, and along with what's happening in the legislature and the Department of Agriculture, put forth a new set of required agricultural practices. Now, there were some challenges with this, but one of the things that it's going to help is keeping our soils in better shape, because soils can be great sponges for carbon. As with our trees, this is an important part of what we can do here in Vermont. We want to push that forward. The other thing we're trying to do is that our Attorney General won $8 million in a lawsuit against Volkswagen. What we want to do with that money is put a lot of it into more weatherization of houses, so that older housing stock could stop heating the outside. And we also know we have a goal by 2050 to have 90% renewable energy here in Vermont. what we need to do is have a lot more of us drive electric cars. Because our electric portfolio, especially with Green Mountain Power, is mostly green. So it creates a green cycle there. So we're going to put some of that money into subsidizing both the purchase and the infrastructure we need, because we need more charging stations around the state. What I want to do is briefly talk about education in Vermont. And our teachers do a great job here. Our kids work hard, and I think we get really good outcomes in Vermont. And what we continue to struggle with is a cohort of students who fall in what we call the performance gap. And that's where I think the legislature should be putting our focus and move it away from the preponderance of energy we've been putting into governance. I never thought governance was the thing holding back education, and that's what Act 46 has been about. We're still pushing to see what we can do with Act 46. In the off session, moving up to the beginning of the session, I helped pull together a tripartisan coalition of legislators in the House. And we're working together now with our colleagues in the Senate to see if we can continue to slow things down. And then at some point, because these cases are in the courts right now, what I hope is we can move past this focus on governance and focus more on what all of our students need to move into the 21st century. I'm going to cut this short right now because I have one more order of business here. For the first time in a long time, David Dean is not up here. And this is somebody who gave us 3 decades of service. So our delegation here has led the effort to put together a resolution that will become a concurrent resolution of the House and Senate. And I'd like to read that and present it to David today.
Make him come down here so he has to stand here while you're reading.
Yeah. Where is David?
Where's Dave? Right there. Come on.
I'm gonna embarrass him a little bit. Why don't you come down here, David?
Oh, no, he doesn't want to. Come on.
Yeah?
Sorry, David.
So David, when you come down? I hear you. So this is a House concurrent resolution honoring former State Representative David Dean of Westminster. Whereas, point of order was certainly the phrase most closely associated with former Representative David Dean on the floor of the House, as he was the sheriff on there, watching to make sure everything was done according to the rules. He was always alert to parliamentary missteps with his mastery of Mason's Rules of Orders. And whereas, as chair of the Committee on Natural Resources, Fish and Wildlife, he devoted considerable attention to environmental matters. And whereas David Dean was born in Abington, Pennsylvania, attended the University of Connecticut, and earned a master's degree from the Antioch New England Graduate School. And whereas his first foray into electoral politics occurred during the 87-88 biennium, serving 1 term as a Windham County State Senator, and whereas in 1991, David Dean returned to the General Assembly as a member of the House from Westminster, whereas his conscientious and dedicated work produced critical legislation intended to improve the quality of the state's waters and preserve Vermont's constitutionally enshrined right to hunt and fish, and whereas David Dean is an avid fisherman who holds memberships in several fishing organizations, has worked as a professional guide, and whereas he's served as river steward for the Connecticut River Watershed Council, exemplifying his concern for the quality of Vermont's waters. And whereas, after nearly 3 decades as the member of the Vermont House from Westminster, former Representative David Dean, husband to Allison Dean, father, grandfather, and great-grandfather, cast his final legislative vote in June 2018, concluding a long and illustrious state legislative career. Now therefore be it resolved by the Vermont Senate and House of Representatives that the General Assembly honors former Representative David Dean of Westminster, and be it resolved that the Secretary of State be directed to send a copy of this to former legislator David Dean. Thank you, David. Thank you for all your service.
I thank my legislative colleagues, and I want to thank the voters of this district for the honor and privilege of serving. That's about all I can handle.
At this point in the meeting, I usually exercise the prerogative to say a few words about what we're doing and the broader issues. At the end of that House Judiciary Committee meeting, Elijah Cummings also said, "When we are dancing with the angels, the question will be asked, in 2019, what did we do to keep democracy alive in this country?" It's an excellent question. What we do, one of the things we do, is we come here to this assembly each year. This is an exercise in the purest democracy that exists on the face of the planet. Because it is our normal, we tend to lose sight of that. But it is pretty clear these days that there are many forces at work that do not care much for democracy, that are more entranced by autocracy. Democracy is slow and inefficient, and as has been said of it, it is the worst form of government on the face of the earth, except for all the others. I appreciate the fact that those of you here today have the patience and the fortitude to put up with the process of democracy, because it is in fact an incredibly precious thing. And we are blessed to have it, and we should resist with all our might the efforts to take it from us. And how we conduct ourselves here, a brief invocation. Let us pause for a moment of silence and reflection. We are gathered together in civil assembly. We gather as a community in the oldest sense of the word. We gather to come together and try to make decisions about what is right, about what is wrong. Let us advocate for our positions, but not at the expense of others. Let us remember that there is an immense gap between saying I am right and saying I believe I am right. And that our neighbors with whom we disagree are good people with hopes and dreams as true and as high as ours. And let us always remember that in the end, caring for each other in this community is of far greater importance than any difference we may have. And now to the more mundane. The explanation of the basic rules of the operational rules of the Assembly. Robert's Rules of Order 11th edition are the basic rules of order for this meeting, except where Vermont law takes precedence. You cannot change state law, but you can change Robert's Rules with a 2/3 vote if you desire. An article must be moved and seconded by the body and restated by the moderator before it is under consideration and debate on the article may begin. Articles may have only one associated amendment at a time, and amendments may have only one amendment associated with them at a time. After you've spoken once on a particular article, you will not be recognized a second time during discussion on that article or amendment until all other voters who wish to speak on the article for the first time are given an opportunity to do so. Division of the House can be requested by one voter before or after voice vote. State law provides for paper ballot vote on the request of 7 voters, unless the town has made other arrangements, again, before or after the voice vote or after a division of the House. This means that the moderator could ask for a voice vote, declare the motion passed, someone could request a division of the House, there must be a vote by show of hands or rising. The moderator declares the motion passed, then someone could request a paper ballot, and the moderator would have to honor the request if the number of people asking the paper ballot meets the minimum requirement of 7. Debate may be cut off on a motion to call the question on a 2/3 vote to do so, which generally means I'd have, unless it's pretty obvious, I'd have to ask for a division. I generally can't count 2/3 on voice vote. All motions, remarks, and discussions must be addressed to the moderator. I will do my best to recognize you in the order that you have raised your hand. You must be recognized to speak, even to call the question. After being recognized, please stand and wait for a microphone. I think we have one today, and I'm going to look for a runner or two to get that around. Give your name, speak in a loud voice so that your comments can be heard by everyone. State law prohibits consideration of articles that have not been warned. This means you cannot take binding action under the article Other Business, and you cannot amend a warned article such that it would deal with business that has not been warned. Reconsideration of an article is allowed by state law until a point is reached where another article is under consideration. This means that if you have voted down an article, a motion can be made to reopen consideration of the article by a person on the prevailing side. You will be asked. However, once the moderator has placed another article before you, no more action can be taken regarding the previous article at the meeting. My role as moderator is to help you accomplish the business you intend to do. Please raise your hand and ask questions if you don't understand what is happening, if you think what is happening is wrong for some reason, or if you want to do something but you don't know how to proceed. Please tell me if you feel I'm ruling improperly. You can overrule me. At this time, I ask that those who are not registered voters of the Town of Westminster to raise their hands. Okay, we have a few, unless a number of the people who aren't residents of Westminster are here representing agencies that have requested funding under some of the special articles later on. I will allow them to speak to the article in the first instance, unless someone objects to them doing so without having a specific vote to allow them to speak. With that, the meeting. The legal voters of the Town of Westminster, Town Fire District Number 3, and Westminster Town School District are hereby notified and warned to meet at the Bellows Falls Union High School Auditorium in Westminster, Vermont on Saturday, March 2nd, 2019 at 10 o'clock in the morning to take action on the articles following Article 1. The meeting will be recessed to the Westminster Institute, East Parish, Westminster, Vermont, to meet at 8 o'clock in the forenoon on Tuesday, March 5th, 2019, for consideration of Article 1 by Australian ballot. The polls shall remain open until 7 o'clock in the evening, at which time the meeting will recess to meet at Bellows Falls Union High School auditorium at 8 o'clock in the evening on Tuesday, March 5, 2019, to consider any remaining articles if necessary. Which I'm expecting we won't need to do, but that's basically the continuation of this meeting. Article 1 is by Australian ballot, so we do not actually vote it here. That is the article that will be voted next Tuesday. Article 1 is to choose all town officers, town fire district number 3 officers, and town school district officers by Australian ballot, Tuesday, March 5, 2019. I got that date right? Okay, Tuesday, March 5, 2019, from 8 o'clock in the forenoon until 7 o'clock in the evening. At this point, usually I introduce any candidates who are either new to you or running in contests. The only seat that is up for election this year that is not uncontested and being reoccupied by the incumbent is on the school board. Tim Young has decided not to run again, and Melissa Karlstrom is running for his position, and I have offered to give her an opportunity to introduce herself to you briefly. Melissa? Maybe do we need to get a microphone running? Yeah, Skylar, would you be willing to run a microphone around? Let me get this hot for you. Thank you. Melissa.
Thank you. I'm Melissa Karlstrom. I moved to Westminster about 10 years ago, and for that time period, I have run a private business in my home, and I'm a teacher. So I have 2 kids, both in Westminster School right now, and I love what Westminster is doing. I think that they have a lot of really great programming, and I'm just happy to be a part of it and bring myself to the process, helping our kids in our school.
So we start with the meeting, the town portion of the meeting. The select board is assembled before you, and the first item is Shel Beebe would like to make a few comments.
Is Don Anderson here, please? Mr. Anderson, could we have you down here, please? For his many years of dedication and service to the town of Westminster and its citizens, the Westminster Selectboard is honored to present Don Anderson, the 2019 Citizen of the Year.
About had to twist the fellow's arm. The next articles are what I call the funding articles. Articles 3 through 13 are all funding requests. 4 and 5 are articles requested by the Select Board, but 6 through 13 are articles that have been added to the warning by other agencies. So we'll let the Select Board get through their part, and then we'll jump in with the rest of them. Article 3. If you want to look in your town report, yes, Ms. Mitchell.
Did we vote on Article 2?
I'm sorry, did we skip 2?
I don't.
Oh, yes, we did. I'm very sorry. Article 2, to hear reports of the town officers and take action thereon. Mr. Beebe.
I move the article as warned.
Article 2, as I say, is to hear reports of the town officers and take action thereon. The reports of the town officers appear in your town report at pages 35 to 40. If there's any question about any of those reports, this is your opportunity to inquire. Anybody want to discuss the reports? I think I didn't get a second yet, but I'm going to treat Martha as having seconded that. Hearing no discussion of the reports of the town officers, all those in favor of approving the reports as they appear in the town report, say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. The reports are approved. Article 3, Ms. Harlow.
I move the article as warned.
Article 3 as warned, to see if the voters of the Town of Westminster will raise and appropriate the sum of $2,025,130 to pay the indebtedness of the town, repair highways, and pay general expenses of the town for the fiscal year July 1, 2019 to June 30, 2020. Is there a second to Article 3? Article 3 is second. That was Martha again. Discussion on Article 3. Ms. Harlow, would you care to be heard?
Yes, I have a few things to say. Is this on?
There might be a switch.
Okay. So the proposed budget is in your town report. You can follow along. And I think we're going to project some of the figures. We're not going to project some of the figures, unfortunately. Okay. So the proposed budget represents about a 6% decrease over the past year from the total budget, FY19 total budget. This does not include the proposed articles. They haven't been added to this number yet. You'll be voting on those after. If all the articles are passed, the budget will be $55,061 more than last year. That increase will be offset by an increase in revenue that not raised by taxes of $27,500. Revenue raised by taxes would be up $27,561. So with this increase and with help from an increase in the grand list, it would be an increase of about 0.0058 tax rate. And that would be a $5.80 tax increase for a $100,000 home. So there are a few things I wanted to point out in the budget. The grand list is up. The actual assessed value is, I think this is right, $1.794 or $500. Health insurance is up 5% with our carrier. We changed health insurance carriers last year because the previous one was proposing a 12.5% increase. Windham County Sheriff is up $6,500, and that will be for 1,500 hours versus the 2,000 that we had last year. Trash and recycling is up 3%. The wages are based on a 3% increase. We will actually set those in June after we get the cost of living information. That's when it's available.
There's a decrease of $15,000 for gas and oil for the town equipment because our equipment is more energy efficient these days. And the North Westminster Community House is in need of a new roof, and that will add $16,500 to the budget. Thank you.
Oh, wait. Oh, they're up.
So you can see these are the appropriations that are already in the budget that have been approved. Each one had to, for 3 years in a row, had to be submitted to the voters. After 3 years, it's automatically included in the budget, and you can see those here. Okay. Russ is trying to get the next screen up. He's got it. So these are the new appropriations asked for this year. They're either new agencies or organizations, or they're an increase or a change from previous appropriations that have already been approved. So as you can see at the bottom. So the way that we decided to do it is you can see the basic budget, 2.925, and proposed, what's that? Yeah. And as each article comes up, if it's approved, then you can see what it will add to the budget and how it, to what tax rate it would increase. I'm hoping that's pretty clear. We'll leave that up there. If it isn't, give us a holler. We're hoping this makes it easier to follow the budget. Oh. Yeah, well, this is what I just said, so. Do you want me to say it again, Russ? Okay, thank you.
Okay, is there discussion on Article 3? Any questions for the Select Board? Yes, Skylar, we got a hand up here. Can you run up? Yeah, there's a woman standing.
The lady standing.
Hi, Kathy Kingston. I just had a question about the sheriff. It sounds like we're going to be paying the same or more, and it's for less time. Can you just discuss that a little bit? What's going on with the sheriff? Thank you.
You want to care to respond?
I'll respond a little bit, but Sheriff Clark is here, so he can talk about it. Essentially, the hourly rate for the deputies has gone up, and so we cut some of the hours back. We had a great discussion about this. Several people came in from the community. Some people wanted no sheriff coverage. Some people wanted it all. So anyway, Sheriff Clark will talk about it.
Sheriff Clark? If there's no objection, I will let Sheriff Clark speak to the Assembly.
Good morning, everyone. Before I get started, I want to thank the members of the volunteer fire department. This morning was a great example. They assisted us at a call, and they do it all as volunteers. And I just want to, reach out and thank them, Cole and his folks, for a great job this morning. My deputy and I were being paid to be there. They were not, and I didn't want to see what I saw, so kudos to them. So yeah, folks, my rates are going up. That's the bottom line. For years, we've tried to, at least for the towns, keep our rates as low as possible. We base them on, for years, were our grant rates. So for many years, particularly the first 4 years I was the sheriff, we had some grant funds available through Department of Justice. And all those grants would pay for was the hourly rate of the deputy. And even then, most of them would only pay 75% of that rate. We could not charge under those grants or build into those rates the overhead costs. And so for years, we tried to keep those rates the same, as low as we possibly could, often a 2.5% to 3% increase per year to keep it basically or pay raises. So we did an internal assessment, then we had an outside group come in and look at our budgets. And what we determined is we can't do that anymore. I have no way of subsidizing or covering the overhead costs. So when you take in the cost of a deputy's salary, their benefits, everybody knows health insurance is going up, workers' comp, dispatching costs, all of that, including the car, which was never built into our rates, we had to raise our rates. So we've met with all the towns that we contract with and said, look, this is what it actually costs, and showed them the numbers. And then so Westminster, like many towns, wanting to continue with our services, is we've worked together to say these are probably the best number of hours to provide those services, and this is the rate. And that's why you're seeing an increase in the cost, but a fewer number of hours. But we've looked at the total number of calls, types of calls, and we feel, after the discussion with the boards, my staff looking at the call, all of that stuff, that it's a good compromise between the number of hours and the rate. That answers your questions.
Great.
While I'm here, if anybody has any other questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Further discussion of Article 3. Yes, Skylar, can you get the mic over there?
Michael Krasner with another question for the sheriff, please. Can you give us an idea of how the deputy spends his time? Well, when this expenditure was originally discussed, as I recall, there was some controversy about how much time would be devoted to traffic stops as opposed to other activities. So I wonder if you could please break that down for us.
Without having the numbers in front of me right now, it's probably around 60% is call volume. The other 40% is traffic enforcement. Much of that is just anecdotal. I'd have to go back and look, but that's typically what we've seen in Westminster. Putney, where we have another full-time deputy, in Vernon, that's about the average. And when I say call volume, it's everything from the type of call we had this morning, which is an aggravated assault, all the way to the traffic crashes and assistance to the town manager around supporting health officers and the dog bites and those kind of complaints.
Further discussion of Article 3. Yes, Mr. Major. We're going to make you run, Skylar.
Stephen Major. I was just wondering if I could get an explanation of reserve fund or funds in this bridge equipment, and do they just appear? Reserve fund appears in several locations. I would like to know how large reserve funds are, and how many there are, because I didn't have time to find them all in the budget. So thank you.
Selectboard, care to respond to that? If you look in your town report on page 33, which is part of the audit, I think you'll find a list of reserve funds. But Selectboard have anything to add to that?
Two are coming up. If you look at our articles, the equipment reserve fund and the bridge one you'd asked for are coming up for a vote as articles on it. Those are the two main reserve funds that we're approaching with you every year. I don't know if that's what you're looking for. We are going to discuss reserve balance too. Those are all articles coming up.
Further discussion of Article 3. Are you ready for the question? Article 3, to raise and appropriate the sum of $2,025,130 to pay for the operations of the town during the next year. All those in favor of Article 3 as warned, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Article 3 appears to carry. Article 3 is carried. On to Article 4. Mr. Hughes.
I move the article as warned.
Is there a second to Article 4? Article 4 is moved and seconded to see if the voters of the Town of Westminster will raise and appropriate the sum of $130,000 for the Town Highway Equipment Reserve Fund. Is there, Mr. Hughes, you care to speak to Article 4?
Good morning, everyone. Good morning, everyone.
If you get real close to that thing, it'll listen to you, but you really got to get up to it.
How about that? Does that work?
That's good.
Sorry. Fiscal 2020, we have a proposed replacement for our six-wheeler, truck number 4. We are carrying over $50,000, $50,242 in the new equipment fund from fiscal 19, where we replaced the 2002, an older Ford tractor with an arm and a motor, and that left us with a balance of $50,242. As you all know, because of the uniqueness of our town, we're able to have a very fine crew of transportation and support personnel that are out there, especially in our tough winters. And I have learned, being blessed to now be in this town and a citizen along with you, that they work very hard. We have a very tough job sometimes when the weather is not right and we need vehicles that are working in proper order. So I've learned that this year on this board. So the purpose of the new vehicle, whenever we buy one, there is always a concern, just like when you buy a car, right? We lose money on the transfer. That is the nature of vehicles, even at commercial levels, at the municipal level, even at the military level. In this particular case, we have a rolling and established methodology for replacing our fleet, and those vehicles particularly that are essential, such as the six-wheeler, which certainly Craig Allen can talk to as far as the specifics as to the utilization of that and other members of the board. But the vehicle is now due for its replacement, and we can maximize the transition cost of that, meaning have a better replacement cost in trade by utilizing that transaction now, which should, we hope, not require us to go sign a note for the replacement of the six-wheeler. We're replacing this with what's called a Western Star 2019, and that is all I have to add.
Thank you, Mr. Hughes. Further discussion of Article 4. Are you ready for the question? Article 4, to see if the voters will raise and appropriate the sum of $130,000 for the Highway Equipment Reserve Fund. All those in favor of Article 4, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. The article appears to carry. The article is carried. Article 4 is approved. Article 5, Ms. Young.
I move the article as printed.
Is there a second to Article 5? All right, Ms. Mitchell. Article 5 is moved and seconded to see if the voters of the Town of Westminster will raise and appropriate the sum of $15,000 for the Bridge Rehabilitation Reserve Fund. Ms. Young?
The Bridge Fund has $122,233 in it. And it is in it, and this $15,000 will bring the total to $137,233, which will help to pay for the town's portion, if there is any, for the complete bridge replacement slated very soon on Route 121. The state of Vermont has deemed this bridge in poor condition and needs replacement as soon as possible. No estimates of the town's portion has come to the town's attention as of yet, but the next bridge, which will be on the docket soon for major repair or replacement, is at the intersection of Patch Road and Westminster West Road. This bridge is moving up in the state's bridge repair allocation rankings. So we're just keeping up with what needs to be done in the town with this article.
Thank you, Ms. Young. I think that bridge on the Westminster West Road, which I drive over every day, has, in the 30 years I've been out there, the state's condemned it twice. I'm glad it's moving up in their rankings. Anyway, further discussion of Article 5. You ready for the question? All those in favor of Article 5 to raise and appropriate the sum of $15,000 for the Bridge Rehabilitation Reserve Fund, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Article 5 appears to carry. Article 5 is carried. Article 5 is passed, and now Articles 6 through 13, which, as I say, are not articles that the Select Board brought forward themselves. They are other agencies, so we may have other representatives speaking to us. But Article 6, Ms. Young.
I move the article as warned.
Is there a second to Article 6? Article 6 is moved and seconded to see if the voters of the Town of Westminster will raise and appropriate the sum of $4,200 in addition to the $4,200 included in the budget proposed by the Select Board, making the total $8,400 for the support of the Westminster West Public Library. So, is there discussion of Article 4? Anyone from the library wish to be heard? Ms. Young?
This is their third petition year, and if it is approved this year, it will become a part of our budget. I think there may be somebody here that will be speaking to the article. No?
Anyone wish to speak to the article?
Richard?
Anyone?
Oh.
Rich Talbot. Thank you, Mr. Moderator, friends, neighbors. I am speaking to you today on behalf of the Westminster West Library, and I'm asking you for your continued support to sustain the many programs currently available. The library is a vibrant institution open to all the residents of Westminster, and every program offered is free of charge. The library's broad range of programs include something for everyone. The kids enjoy preschool, after school, and winter break programs. The Around the World Passports program introduces the children to the culture of other countries with the help of volunteers from countries like Mexico, Greece, Denmark, and Indonesia. The guest speakers, author presentations, and a book club for the adults. Attendance statistics show participation has doubled since 2014 as a result of being responsive to the local needs. Engaging children to be curious readers and providing a safe, accessible space is important to our community. Folks, I'm asking you to approve this funding so that the library can continue its valuable mission. Thank you.
Now, Rich, because I like you, I didn't cut you off there, but you're not supposed to read things.
Oh, thank you, Mr.
Speak.
I am weak on this part of the program, so I needed all the help I could get. But thanks for that, Fletcher.
You're welcome. Further discussion of Article 6. Yes, up in the back here.
Elisa Albidano. Thank you for telling me about what you are doing at the library. That sounds wonderful. I just was wondering why the budget is doubled, just so I know. Thank you.
Anyone from the library care to speak to the funding? Yes. Okay, Skylar, down here. Now, tell us your name.
Abby Sheriff.
Okay, what have you got to say?
Okay, I like the library because it's a good way to connect with the people who go to the Westminster West School.
Okay. Thank you. Anybody who might be able to speak specifically to the money issue? Maybe Skylar up here in the middle.
Dean Lynch. I spend a lot of time at the library, and I can tell you just from going back and forth, the costs have gone up. And as Ms. Young pointed out, really, this is not a doubling of it at this point. We've been doing it the last 2 years, and the costs have been in the program being able to be expanded with what they've been doing. You know, it's just as the cost of doing business has gone up, and this is what they need to do it. And as most people know, which was not mentioned by Rick, is they have the internet there, which is good for a lot of us that don't have that. And then also, just the cost of all the updated books and everything else, you know, we know it's just getting more expensive to live, period. And without a library, as we all know, reading is fundamental, and we need it.
Thank you. Ms. Kingston, right behind you, Skylar.
Hi, I just wanted to say that it is not doubled. It's the same amount that's been asked for the last, this is the 3rd year that this amount has been being asked for. So, thank you.
Further discussion of Article 6. Anyone wish to be heard? Seeing none, to Article 6 to see if the voters will appropriate the total sum of $8,400, which represents an addition of $4,200. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. The article appears to carry. The article does carry. Article 6 is approved. Article 7, Mr. Allen.
I like this new system, it's easy. I move article as warned.
Is there a second to Article 7? Article 7 is moved and seconded to see if the voters of the Town of Westminster will raise and appropriate the sum of $500 in addition to the sum of $2,500 included in the budget proposed by the Selectboard, making the total $3,000 for the support of Southeastern Vermont Community Action to assist Westminster in responding to the emergency needs of the community and providing all available and applicable services to families and individuals in need. Mr. Allen, do you wish to speak? Or?
You did an excellent job.
I believe we have Mr. Geller here. Yes. Mr. Geller's not a resident of the town, but we would benefit from your wisdom.
Well, I hope I can live up to that. Hello. Now there's some wisdom right there. If it's all right, I want to stand here so I can see everybody and everybody can see me. First of all, thank you for allowing me to speak to the town meeting this morning. I appreciate it greatly. My name is Steve Geller. I'm the Executive Director of SEVCA. And I want to first say that among other things, and you heard and saw David Dean and the honor to him this morning. One of the things that wasn't mentioned was that he was also Executive Director of SEVCA for a number of years, some 40 years ago. And he created a lot of initiatives at SEVCA that are still around today. And I'm proud to make an effort to follow in his footsteps. today. So David, thank you for all the work you did in making SEVCA the organization it is today. I want to also thank the Select Board and all of the town residents for all the support they've given us for many, many years, and we greatly appreciate it, and we use those funds very judiciously to meet people's needs and to help them get through tough times. And I'll speak a little bit more about how we use the funds and why they're so important in a minute. You'll see a more detailed SEVCA report on page 54 in the town annual report. I won't go into all those details, but in summary, we provided over $224,000 worth of services to 262 Westminster residents in 119 households during our last fiscal year, 2017 to 18. And they include a wide range of emergency and basic needs services, such as crisis fuel, homelessness prevention, and many others, emergency home repair, weatherization and heating system repair or replacement, income tax preparation assistance to help people get tax refunds and credits, our Health Navigator program to help people obtain adequate and affordable health insurance, and a number of other things such as financial counseling, food stamp outreach and application assistance, and general information referral and assistance for many, many needs that people have and come to us for. Other services that we provided in previous years includes workforce development, job training, small business support and training, our financial fitness education, and match savings program as well that help people reach their financial goals. Other SEVCA initiatives include our new community solar project, which you may see as you pass by on the access road to exit 5 at our main office, which is we're in the process of completing, and it's going to provide solar generated electric credits to residents with high energy cost burdens when that's complete. Last year's services were provided to the town for just $2,500 in town support, which is 1.3% of the value of the services provided. Or another way to look at it is that for every dollar the town supported us with, we provided almost $90 in services. That's a pretty good return on investment, we think, for residents of Westminster. Over the past 6 years, we provided almost $728,500 worth of services to over 2,100 residents in over 1,000 households for just $15,000 in town support, or just a little over 2% of the total value. In addition to all of that, Westminster residents have the unique advantage of having our main office right here in town on Buck Drive, which makes it easier, quicker, and more convenient than almost anyone else we serve to access all of the services that we have and that are available and that people are eligible for. While only a small portion of our budget that's provided by the towns and all the towns that we get support from, that support is a critical part of our total package of revenue because of its flexibility, in contrast to the often very tightly restricted nature of most of our state and federal funds. With those funds that the towns provide, we can determine on the ground, as we're working with individuals and families, the most effective way to help residents in the way that would best address their particular needs and resolve their particular crises. In summary, we greatly appreciate Westminster's consistent and generous support. We're asking for only a small increase of $500 from this current year's amount, and hope you'll find that our services are valuable enough to allow us that small increase to, as others have talked about, to account for the rising cost of providing services, of staff, of everything that we do, and to continue to support us next year and into the future. I thank you very much, and I'm happy to answer any questions if anyone has any.
Thank you, Mr. Geller. Further discussion of Article 7? Seeing none, are you ready for the question? Article 7, to increase the SEVCA appropriation by $500 to a total of $3,000. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. Article 7 is approved based on that very comprehensive presentation. Article 8, Mr. Allen.
I move the article is warned.
Is there a second for Article 8? Article 8 is moved and seconded to see if the voters of the Town of Westminster will raise and appropriate the sum of $1,000 for the support of Senior Solutions, parentheses, Council on Aging, close parentheses, to provide all available and applicable services to families and aging individuals in need in the Town of Westminster. Mr. Allen, anything on that?
No.
Do we have a representative of Senior Solutions here? Yes.
Hi, I'm Ann White. I'm a nurse and outreach specialist for Senior Solutions. So I am here today just to let you know a little bit about what Senior Solutions has been doing in the community. We focus on serving the over 60 population and disabled. And this year we're requesting $1,000 from the Town of Westminster. So last year, a little bit of data for what we did. We provided case management services to 14 individuals, which totaled 162 hours. We received 94 calls to our senior helpline and addressed the needs for each one of those. We also offer something called SHIP counseling, and we received 35 calls. And SHIP stands for our State Health Insurance Program. And we work with clients on providing, we provided 3,137 meals to seniors in the area last year. Senior Solutions administers the program with a registered dietitian. We count on communities and other local care groups such as Westminster Cares and senior centers to provide the meals, so we work with them. Our services include Medicare boot camps and individual assistance with benefit applications such as 3 Squares, our Choices for Care long-term care services, which assists older adults to remain in their homes in place of going into a nursing home. We assist with fuel assistance, our senior companion program, as well as our friendly visitor program, which helps with elderly adults in their homes who become isolated. We're currently working on the Justice Grant that works on ending elder abuse. Senior Solutions is also starting a new program called Home Meds, which I am providing and have done a few outreach presentations in the area. We offer a helpline number which is toll-free to anybody in the Windham and Windsor County area. And our funding is 35% funding comes from federal, our Older Americans Act, 35% from state, 15% from grants, 8% from private donations, and 7% of our funding comes from Windham and Windsor counties. So I left some brochures in the back that include some of the other services that Senior Solutions offers. And a thank you to some of our advisory council members and volunteers in the community. Thanks.
Thank you. Further discussion of Article 8. Any questions? Seeing none. All those in favor of raising and appropriating the sum of $1,000 for Senior Solutions, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Article 8 appears to carry. Article 8 is carried. Article 9, Ms. Harlow.
I move the article as warned.
Is there a second Article 9? Article 9 is moved and seconded to see if the voters of the Town of Westminster will raise and appropriate the sum of $800 in addition to the sum of $4,600 included in the budget proposed by the Select Board, making the total $5,400 for the support of the Westminster Gazette. Any Select Board member wish to speak to the article? Anyone from the Gazette here? Yes, Skylar, down here.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Charmin Handy. I'm the chair board person for the Westminster Gazette. The Westminster Gazette is a community newspaper. It is completely run by volunteers who meet once a month, and we try to come up with ideas for improvement, and it is all of the articles that are submitted to the Gazette are submitted by community members, and we are currently seeking an additional $800 for a bunch of different reasons, but when the Gazette was formed in 2004, there were some previous commitments for funding that never really came to fruition, so the Gazette has historically operated in a negative, and we have worked over the last couple of years to kind of close that gap to get us closer to being where we need to be on a monthly basis. So one thing that we experienced recently is the publisher who started with the Gazette in 2004 has stopped producing newspapers. So we have contracted with the Keene Sentinel, who will be producing our first article, our first edition this coming week. It's going to the printers this weekend, and we're really excited. The paper is going to be bigger, so there's going to be more room so that we can fit in all the articles. I know sometimes we run into, sorry, I'm just distracted, I hope everybody's okay. So we are going to be contracted with the Keene Sentinel. The paper's going to be bigger. It's going to allow for more room, for more space. I know there were some articles that were left out last month because we were trying to fit everything in for town meeting, and we apologize for that. But that shouldn't be a problem moving forward. And with the bigger paper and the new printer, our costs have gone up quite a bit. So we're just, again, working to close the gap, and really appreciate the volunteers, the folks that actually help deliver the papers to the businesses. Allison Dean and Pete Harrison. Susan Harlow helps out with editing. Always welcome board members, underwriters. If you're interested in editing, taking a look at it before everybody else sees it. It's kind of exciting. Just appreciate it. So, that's all I have to say.
Thank you very much. Further discussion of Article 9? Any discussion? Seeing none. Article 9, to see if the voters of the Town of Westminster will raise and appropriate the sum of $800 in addition to the $4,600 in the Select Board budget for a total of $5,400 for the support of the Gazette. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Article 9 appears to carry. Article 9 does carry. Article 10. Ms. Harlow. Is there a second? Article 10 is moved and seconded to see if the voters of the Town of Westminster will raise and appropriate the sum of $5,580 for the support of the Westminster Institute / Butterfield Library. Mr. Matteau.
Thank you. Jim Matteau. I'm one of the 7 volunteer board members for the Institute, which includes the library. Just to let folks know, the direct library operating expenses for the current budget year are a little over $25,000. I won't blame others for this. I did my best to estimate how to allocate costs of heat, lights, and maintenance and things with the building open different hours of the day and night in different parts of the building. So that, I use a Ouija board for that. But I estimate that brings that $25,000 cost somewhere up in the in the $32,000, $33,000, but it's hard to say. It's a big old building, but a nice building, I gotta say. And just so folks know, our total operating budget is about $80,000. The lion's share of that is carried by legacy investments that originated with George Dascom, local resident businessman who really envisioned the Institute and was responsible for it being built. And Isaac Butterfield, who lived earlier in his life in Westminster, I guess, was in Boston when he died and left money to establish a library here, which is why it's the Butterfield Library. Those two funds have carried as I say, the majority of the expenses for almost 100 years. The Institute was dedicated in 1924. And we are dedicated to making sure that those funds are still there 100 years from now. And we are at the point now, been struggling for a while, and we're drawing about 6 to 7% of that, which is too much. We want it to at least be stable and hopefully grow for the future. And so I've got a lot of other information about how many people, how many books, other programs, and what we plan for the future. But before Fletcher tells me to stop, I will stop. And then if there are any questions, we'll do our best to answer any that you have. Well, I do want to add a nice recognition of Don Anderson earlier. If you use the Institute for any reason and you find out that the steps are shoveled and the door is unlocked and other things like that, it's probably Don Anderson that did that for you. So another thank you to him.
Thank you, Mr. Matteau. And when have I ever told you to stop speaking? Any further discussion of Article 10 or questions for Mr. Matteau? Seeing none, if you're ready for the article, to see if the voters will raise and appropriate the sum of $5,580 for the support of the Westminster Institute and Butterfield Library. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Article 10 appears to carry. Article 10 is carried. Article 11, Mr. Hughes.
I move the article as warned.
Is there a second? Article 11 is moved and seconded to see if the voters of the Town of Westminster will raise and appropriate the sum of $3,000 for the support of the Westminster Historical Society. Do you care to speak to it?
Yes.
Please.
Again, good afternoon. So good afternoon, good morning. This is the first petition year. It is? Okay, sorry about that. This is the first petition year for our Westminster Historical Society. So if approved, they'll need 2 more successful years at the time.
Hear you.
Sorry. This will be this is the first year, petition year for them. So if approved, they will need 2 more years, successful requests at the same time. So they would become part of the budget starting in July of 2021, fiscal 2022. And I just wanted to say what incredible work they do. Our legacy, obviously, our town is historic. It adds much, not just to the character, but to the identity of who we are, and a great deal of attractiveness to those who come not just as tourists, but perhaps seeking a new life. The cost, as we've all said, going along goes up, and nothing more than historic artifacts and historic preservation. The cost of that, as we all know, is very high, and that has continued to escalate. These folks do tireless work, preserving some of the most extraordinary artifacts that we should all be very proud that we are custodians of, for such an extraordinary history that our town possesses. So I'm glad to present this article as warned and support it completely. Thank you.
Further discussion of Article 11? Yes, Ms. Schuyler.
Barry Shamus. I'm just sort of curious, why do we need a historical society?
obviously, we might have a member of the Historical Society out there, hopefully, if there is, that can speak to that.
Skylar down here, Ms. Taylor.
Can I make a quick comment?
Oh,
Barry,
please.
those who forget history are condemned to repeat it.
I could say something too. I mean, when we moved here from New York, we were blessed with the custodialship of a beautiful structure. The individual who lived there was a very famous politician, as many of you know. And with that custodial opportunity we got, there is a quote that he said that stirs me whenever I'm in that house. And he said that our forefathers came here seeking safety and justice in the forests of America. And I think with everything we heard from our representatives about our government and why we're here today, no town in Vermont, or very few, can elicit or support the work that would make sure that that happened than ours. Our history is very, very rich. I am very fortunate to be a part of this town, not having been born here, and I take great pride in the history and the people who protect that history, because it teaches us all about the very precious thing we have, which is not just our liberties, but the fact that we're here today talking openly and honestly about what we all think, and our opinions are equally shared. Thank you.
Jessie Haas, I'm a member of the Westminster Historical Society Board, and I want to thank Mr. Hughes for his remarks. And I'm inclined to treat the question as rhetorical, but just to say what the Historical Society has done over the years. We have the artifacts in the condition that we have them because people, not myself, people over the years have done a great deal of work to put them in the right containers, then to find out, oh no, these containers have unexpected side effects, put them in different containers, carefully document where they came from and their provenance, and so that they're there for people to see. We also go into the schools. At the moment, we're going into the schools because the Historical Society Museum is in a bit of a state of chaos. The town has done some remodeling to the town hall, which is where we were housed for many years. And necessarily that's meant putting things away, getting things out. We would like to progress from the really antique exhibit cases that we have where you can peer through the very historic scratched glass and kind of see the exhibits, to ones where you can actually see how beautiful they are. And if you don't know the exhibits, when we get it all back up, I do hope you'll come and see. The other thing that we do that costs a great deal of money is to preserve Westminster's time capsule, which is the Williams R. Bradley Law Office. It's an extraordinary piece of history that sat there for 100 years untouched. It shows the life of a lawyer and congressman well over 100 years ago, and the history of this town. And it's really a magnificent artifact that costs us a ton. So we would appreciate the support, and we are very appreciative of the support that we have always received from the town.
Thank you. Further discussion of Article 11? Yes, Scott.
My name is Ruth Grandy. I am the current president of the Westminster Historical Society. For a little background information as to why there is an historical society, in 1752, when we applied for a charter for the town of Westminster, we were granted township number 1 in the state of Vermont. there's also a great history in the town of Westminster, in that if you read the history books, you don't find the fact that the town of Westminster hosted the first casualties of the American Revolution prior to the Battle of Concord Lexington. We have some of the artifacts that go back to those years. We have a lot of information available about the history of the town of Westminster, Jesse Haas having written a tremendous volume about that. But I do want to let people know who have not been to visit the Westminster Historical Society Museum, you know, when we are open, there are an awful lot of eye-opening exhibits there, and I would appreciate the support from you all. Thank you.
Thank you. Further discussion of Article 11. Yes, Skylar, over here.
Okay, hi, good morning. Phoebe Gooding. Is that what I do? I say my name. Anything else?
That's a good start.
Okay. So I actually appreciate that question about do we need a historical society? So for me, I don't think it's so much a question of whether we need to document our history, but it's how we document our history and whose history that we document. And so for me, I want to raise this going forward with funding for the Historical Society, that we are all thinking about how we represent the history and the culture of this town, and the many different cultures of this town, and the many different experiences that have made Westminster what it is. So that's what I want to bring to, to this discussion of, how we bring the money and also how we decide whose history we represent and what's represented there.
I encourage you to volunteer or even consider becoming a board member. Full disclosure, I am a board member of the Westminster Historical Society. Further discussion of Article 11. Anything else? Article 11, to see if the voters of the town of Westminster will raise and appropriate the sum of $3,000 for the support of the Westminster Historical Society. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Article 11 appears to carry. Article 11 does carry. Article 12, Mr. Beebe.
I move the article as warned.
Is there a second Article 12? Article 12 is moved and seconded to see if the voters of the town of Westminster will raise and appropriate the sum of $2,500 for the support of the Greater Falls Connection. Mr. Beebe, do you care to speak?
Other than the fact that this is their first petition year, if approved, they will need 2 more successful requests in front of this group before it becomes part of our budget. Other than that, I'm hoping.
Can't hear you.
Yeah, get right up to
that. This is their first petition year. If approved, they will need 2 more successful requests at the same amount of money before they become part of our budget. I'm hoping that there's somebody from Falls Connection to speak to this. Thank you.
Skylar, could we get the mic down here? Down front? Or?
Skylar, you're doing a heck of a job. Hi, can everyone hear me? Yeah. All right, can someone go out in the parking lot and make sure they can hear me out there too? I'm going to ask 2 other people to come down here and join me up here in front of you guys. My name is Jonathan O'Connor. I am a...
Could you step a little bit more to the side?
I'm really bad at audio visual. But I'd love to have Kara and Laura come on down here. Guys. What I want to talk to you guys really quickly about is Greater Falls Connection, or GFC is what we like to call it. We are a substance abuse prevention coalition. And our mission is connect the community of Wyndham Northeast by inspiring and empowering people through education and collaboration to promote wellness and prevent abuse of alcohol, tobacco, and other drugs. And I think we can all agree that's pretty important.
Speak into the mic.
I think we can all agree that's pretty important. I got all freaked out because they kept humming at me, so sorry. But my friends here are part of the coalition as well. On a regular basis, we are reaching out to the community. We are providing numerous ways of trying to approach and attack the whole issue of substance abuse and addiction. We serve not just Westminster, but also Grafton, Rockingham, Athens. Greater Falls Connection membership includes over 200 local community members, youth, parents, social service providers. I keep forgetting this thing really does a big difference. And we're trying to work together to build a healthy, nurturing, and supportive community, right? Because a community is the connections that we have amongst each other. And the opposite of addiction is connection. And that's what we're trying to promote. And every day, we're out there in the community talking with people and trying to make a difference in everyone's lives. Between January and December of last year, to give you an example, there's been over 135 TV, radio, newspaper stories published in local and regional newspapers. Over 4,000 informational materials have been disseminated, including information for parents and information to the community about preventing youth alcohol, tobacco, and other drug use, and information about preventing opioid abuse and overdose. Specifically in the town of Westminster, highlights to our work include collaboration with the Compass School, student and parent workshops, providing smoke-free zone signs for the town hall and the Butterfield Library, Westminster Center School and the Exit 5 Park and Ride, promoting prescription drug take-back days and publicizing the year-round drop box at the Vermont State Police Barracks, promoting state police safe driving social media campaigns on Facebook around major holidays. For a lot of people that suffer from addiction, these are trigger points when there's a lot of high stress that goes on. Several presentations at the Westminster Cares on safe prescription drug storage and disposal and disseminating free prescription drug mail-back envelopes provided by the Department of Health. That's kind of like where I've been at with this. I've been really grateful and gratified by the fact that I've been asked to be part of the board. And if it's all right, do you guys anyone want to share anything? These are some amazing kids.
Hi, I'm Laura. I'm Kara Lesgord. I just wanted to say that my sense of community started at Greater Falls Connections in 5th grade with the Above the Influence group, where a bunch of youth and kids talking about how to stop the stigma and how to help inform kids of alcohol and substance use, which is really great. I'm just really grateful for Laura and Greater Falls Connections. And I ask that you guys support them because they've supported me my whole life. And now I am 17 and I am the vice chair of the board. So, thank you guys.
Kidding. Won't drop the mic. So, I've been part of the board for a little bit. I can't remember how many years, but yeah, they've helped me in a lot of ways as well. They're also really good with working with different, substance-related problems in the town of Bells Falls and in Westminster. I am very excited to actually get to speak to you guys because I am also part of the ATI group, which is Above the Influence. I know some of the schools in Bells Falls and Westminster have the ATI group, and our group works with basically both Bells Falls Town and Westminster. So yeah, please, please, please support us.
Thank you, and I appreciate our members, our volunteers for speaking on behalf of our coalition. I'm Laura Scherbaum, I'm the director of Greater Falls Connections. I don't need to say much more than what these folks have generously said about our work in the community and connecting youth with the community, connecting parents and families. If we did receive this funding, we would continue to work with the Town of Westminster around local policies and programs that can help increase access to prevention, treatment, and recovery services for those suffering from the disease of addiction. We hope to increase our work within Wyndham Northeast Supervisory Union at the elementary school level so that we can get earlier on with prevention and really just building on our partnerships that we have in the Town of Westminster. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Further discussion of Article 12? Seeing none, Article 12, to see if the voters of the Town of Westminster will raise and appropriate the sum of $2,500 for the support of Greater Falls Connection. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Article 12 appears to carry. Article 12 is carried. We are pretty close to noon time. Do you want to take another article or should we break for lunch? Are we going for one more? Okay, Article 13. Mr. Allen.
I move Article 13 as warned.
Is there a second for Article 13? Article 13 is moved and seconded to see if the voters of the Town of Westminster will raise and appropriate the sum of $9,534 for the support of Southeastern Vermont economic development. Mr. Allen?
Yeah, this one is one that I'd like to at least discuss for a few minutes. This one has personally been very close to me from the sense that all the articles we've discussed, all the taxes we raise, only to prove that this town is a very supporting town. We support our people here and we support with great services. It's a great place to live. I'm in the 4th generation. Couldn't be any prouder to live in this town. This article is the only one that actually directs to going out, and it's a great idea to locate and get jobs more for people to either live in Westminster or people to have jobs in Westminster themselves. I personally took a falling because in my career, I started working 25 years ago for Allenby Truck Service and realized that the company was doing real well and expanded, and in this exit and off to Westminster, by far the largest employee service is the transportation service. And when they first came to us, they said, yeah, that's the main complaint that we have is we can't reach out and find enough help. We were purchased for the 5th time. And officially November 1st, I'm now working for another company. When this company took over, they were being very, very aggressive. They wanted within 2 years to add as many as 50 more employees to our Westminster location. They feel that this is a great hub for jobs and for transportation. We're the only dealership. The furthest one to the south is Springfield, Mass, Burlington, Vermont to the north, Albany, and then Manchester, New Hampshire to the east. So when they looked at it, they said that this is really going to be a place that we need, that we can have service. Our technology has changed in the transportation business tremendously. We're heading towards driverless trucks. We have 0 emissions coming out. We now need, all our trucks are actually being diagnosed and serviced through the satellite out of Detroit. And what we're looking for is IT young kids that can run computers, to do training. This is a highly paid occupations, and now we're actually having people commute from Worcester, Mass, our headquarters, daily just to come here to work. We hired another HR person, and what we did was we tried to recruit. We actually started in Worcester their own college to train these kids, and we'd actually just pulled, we're proud to say, 2 last year out of Bells Falls, and we just listed 2 more. They're going to be going to school to be fully trained free and then actually have good jobs offered. As I raised my 2 kids in Westminster, that was the one thing I did have come from a family business. We had an opportunity, but I saw a lot of the kids that went and got a good education. There was no place to come back close enough to have a good job. And I feel that that's the one thing that we need to start to look at. We'll never be a town that has a lot of factories and stuff or more farm, but this exit is really a great exit for the transportation hub. So I started last year when we discussed the 9,500, we cut it back in half. I said, let's give them a year to see what they can do, because I think it's a great idea and I'm for it. When I called them, and Russ called the principal, and they basically said they haven't seen him all year, which disappointed me. I tried to reach out, couldn't really get any help. My HR person is the same, so I decided to take the next step, and that is to take the time and survey all the transportation companies from North End, which is really BDR Transport, to the end. And I learned a lot of stuff too. One is hardly anybody's ever heard of them, nobody's used them, and nobody's ever been contacted. That upsets me, because if you want to recruit people to come here, first see what kind of jobs we have and what are we looking for. If you don't go to the business and ask that, what are you recruiting for? We're recruiting for somebody to go to a job that's not available within this area to live. The good thing about it, as far as that is, I was actually impressed that I added up to over 750 people are being employed in the transportation business in just that section. That started up through. There's a lot more going on than I think what people think in Westminster. And I think it's because we tried to stay low, because the trucking business is not something you want to brag about all the time. But we are at 0 emissions now. We're heading to cutting our fuel mileage in half. And our next step is everything's going to be electronic. And so I think it's a good future for us. It's a good opportunity, but we somehow got to reach out to these kids to realize that there is some good jobs and we have some good training around here. And I'd like to see something be done. I think as a board, we don't support the 9,500. We've been the only one that we didn't support. And it's because it's being not really proven that they're doing what we thought they were doing.
Further discussion. I think we have a representative of SEVCA here, Ms. Stromston. With your permission, she will address the assembly. Skylar, can we get her a mic?
Thank you. I'm going to come down front to reduce neck strain. Thank you for allowing me to speak today. I have notes. I'm not going to read them. It's to keep me on task. I appreciate the investment from last year in the regional economy through SEVCA. So BDCC is the Regional Economic Development Agency, the Regional Development Corporation. There are 12 throughout the state of Vermont that cover all the regions, basically the same areas that your regional commissions cover. SEVCA is the way that this organization started several years ago, saying we're going to have to do more. And we operate on a lot of different fronts, last year we had 75% of Wyndham regional residents who supported SEVCA through town funding. We do a lot of work and we can't do it without your investment. Basically, we use your dollars to create capacity, to hire people to work at the schools, and I'll speak to some of what you said in a moment. We use those dollars to go raise other dollars, to bring money into the region. So we're leveraging those dollars over and over again. For us, we are trying to work on many fronts. We are working in the schools. We work directly with towns. We work directly with businesses. And we don't have enough staff to work with every single business, but we work with hundreds of businesses a year. And last year we helped over 50 businesses stay, start, and grow in the region. There is information in your town report. There's a slightly more visually pleasing version of it in back. There's also full annual reports in back that gives you a little bit more breadth of what we do. It is this thing with the picture of Chroma on the cover. Chroma is a company we've worked with through the BDCC side to expand, to increase their employment, to improve their facility, keep them competitive. It is also a company that's been a great workforce partner. They have welcomed field trips, which is one of the things that we do, is bring high schoolers into companies so they can understand the opportunities here, so that they understand how to connect what they're training for and educating themselves to do, hopefully to opportunities in the region, because keeping kids here really requires them understanding how to build a career here. I also want to point out to you, there is some excellent video online of our select board visits, and that's in that we had the opportunity to answer questions from the select board and to talk about how the economy is regional, jobs. We work in a lot of different sectors, great data. I say that because I like data, and that's what I do. But the real question is, what do we do here and for you? So one of our programs is internships. We have an internship coordinator, it's full-time. We bring in DOL dollars to do that, and then SEVCA also pays for some of that. We work with dozens of businesses. We, this year, had a terrific placement that really turned into a regular job, not just an internship, for a Westminster resident who's at Kurt Hatton. She's a very talented person, so give her credit for getting that job, but we helped. We have the Young Professionals group. We host things throughout the region. The gala is upcoming. We work with businesses. We also, we do work in the high schools, and we went out and raised funds so we can increase the personnel in the high schools. So I'm sorry that there was a response that we weren't active in the high schools, but I actually have a list from our Pipelines and Pathways and Fast Track staff who work with high school students. We've been running resume workshops to make sure that every single student at the Bellows Falls High School has a resume, knows how to build a resume, knows how to think about their skills and their education in a way that they can demonstrate to employers and to schools, and to think about their skill building and their goals. We also helped a number of students with unique and specific career goals, including some OSHA certification and some energy efficient home renovation building training. Next year we will be working with co-op program students and teachers to help students earn graduation credits, and frankly to increase the number of opportunities that help kids connect their education to career goals. We have, frankly, you have one of the best guidance counselors in the region. He's been an incredible partner in helping us develop our high school programming, because we're doing some innovative things at that 77 allows to help kids really take control of their education and think earlier about create some self-awareness and career awareness to connect what they're doing up to their sort of future goals. We work with communities. We have a program across Southern Vermont. Our next upcoming thing is a grant writing workshop in Bellows Falls on March 22nd. It's open to any kind of town or nonprofit, and we're bringing a whole bunch of funders here because we like funders from all over the state to know our communities better, so they want to put their money here on the ground. And I'm going to end on the thing that I'm sort of most excited about, and that we actually have come and spoken with select board members about, and will be, there's a flyer about this in the back. This is USDA Community Facilities Assistance Program. The BDCC side of our things is, you know, for real estate, we have a lot of real estate. We have 75 tenants with 400-something employees in the Brattleboro area, but we also do really special projects that require, frankly, technical skill and federal dollars to pencil out, like the Chroma expansion. We wanted to put that capacity to work in communities, and we applied multiple times to the USDA and finally got a grant to deliver technical assistance to community projects, so we can help you take an idea to the point where it can apply for a planning grant from the USDA, or take a project that's in the works and go apply for grants or low interest long-term loans. And again, I think, you know, my point here is that what we are trying to do is to spend your money and go get more money with it and bring more outside dollars into the region, because, you know, the roof of the community center, the EDA accessibility to the library, towns can fund that to some extent, but you can get it done faster and dream bigger if we can help bring more resources to the table, and that takes capacity, and that's what we do. And it can be boring and technical, but you know, that's what we've gotten good at, and we know we can help you, and we will continue to help you.
Thank you. Further discussion or comments on Article 13? Yes, Mr. Hackett.
Thank you. My name is Chris Hackett. I live in Westminster. Craig, don't get mad at me. But for the past 4 or 5 years, the Vermont Chamber has put on an economic development conference. It has been held in Burlington, Chittenden County. For the first year, they had 2, one at Castleton. I encourage as many people to go to next year's because it's an eye-opening informational session. As most of you know, our populace is stagnant, especially in southern Vermont. With the exception of Chittenden County, we here in Windham County have negative growth. We need workforce development. And Craig, I understand Westminster doesn't see much, but I think we got to start thinking regionally, and we have to. Because regionally, I think if we think of that name, regional, we'll see that SEVCA, BDCC, a lot of others are helping to promote businesses in this community. They did a great job, I'll repeat it again, I said it last year, Chroma. This recently, we're helping Whitney Blake. If we think of people who work at these places, some of which live in Westminster. So I know there seems to be a lot of money, but I think we need to start thinking regionally. And workforce development is key. Everywhere I go to businesses, when I work for a bank, and each business I talk to, they need workforce. There's jobs out there. Believe it or not, there are jobs. But the key is workforce development. Try to retain these kids. Keep them in Vermont. Thank you.
Further discussion on Article 13. Yes. Well, you pick, Skylar.
Thanks, Scott. I recently received the annual report, and there is one up back there, and I see that SEVCA is helping a lot of businesses, but they are mostly Twin Valleys on here, a lot of Brattleboro businesses. I don't see any Westminster, I guess Chroma up in Bellows Falls, and I guess my thought is that there are a lot of organizations out there that are doing really, really good work, and they aren't coming to Westminster to ask our help. People, you know, SEVCA needs funding, and I think it's doing really important work, and I just wonder if Westminster, we as voters should be paying for that work when it's actually not directly, it is directly affecting some of our residents, but there are a lot of organizations that are directly affecting some of our residents. And the amount that you're asking for is way out of line with all of these other, our local libraries, our historical society, our Gazette, and SEVCA is only asking for $500. It's way out of line with these other really important institutions that are supporting the health of this town. I would love to see SEVCA increase their asking fee. A lot of these other numbers are contingent on good weatherization. So I would like to, personally, I'm not in favor of voting this amount of money to SEVCA. I would like to see you ask for less, and I would like to perhaps ask you to come back next year with some clear indication of how your work is impacting Westminster in a stronger way. Thank you.
Ms. Kingston, ask for less. Is that a proposal for an amendment?
That is not a proposal for an amendment.
Okay.
Somebody else, yeah. No, I'm willing to vote no.
Skylar, right here. Yeah.
Dean Lynch and I totally agree with that, and I didn't even know what this was when I read this through on these articles. I've never heard anything about it. I don't know anybody here is even know what it was. I think I heard the same speech last year, and it's a lot of, you know, this is the country we live in right now, the land of the golden calf where grifter is king. And, you know, I don't really see any return on this. I mean, I really don't. I mean, as was very nicely said, our libraries, we see what they do. We see what SEVCA does. I mean, all of us have experience with these different things, the Historical Society, and they're reasonable. These people are living in a different world. I mean, I think just if we look at their presentation, it's about glitz. And, you know, I'm going to vote no, and I encourage everyone else here to vote no as well. Thank you.
Further discussion. Yes, Skylar, up in the back.
married major. I'd like to disagree slightly with the last comment. I absolutely do see that there's a payback in investing in this organization. Most of us leave Westminster at least once a day. Many of us are employed outside of the town, and this organization really works to build capacity in the whole region. And I see great value in that. I do recognize that this is a higher dollar amount suggested per person than other organizations do. So I wonder if we could amend the proposal to $2.50 per resident rather than the $3. And I don't know what the population is, so I'm not entirely sure what that math adds up to.
So am I hearing that as an amendment, a proposed amendment?
Yes.
Okay. So the proposal is to reduce the dollar figure by
5 or 6.
Okay, so that would be basically a 20% reduction, if I'm doing the math right. Do I? Is that you, Bob? Are you doing the math? Okay, so Russ is saying $7,945 at that level.
Based on 3178.
Yeah, and I think we need to work with their number, the 9554. That's what. Okay.
They're basing their number on 3,178 population.
Okay. So, does that sound good to you, Marion, that the proposal is to reduce the amount appropriated to $7,945? Is there a second for Marion's amendment? I'm not going to hear other discussion until we get the amendment on the floor. Is there a second to that amendment? I see a second in the back. So it's moved and seconded to amend the proposal to reduce the amount appropriated to $7,945. Discussion on the amendment.
As a board, we weren't totally against this, so let me make that clear. It was basically the dollar amount. It's just like what they were saying in the back. It's just so much more you can spend with $9,700 to give to all the other people there. If it was a lower dollar amount, and I'll just throw out that the $4,700 was, we thought, a little high. But if I throw out the $3,500, I think that's where the board thought they would be coming in, because we see a lot of $2,500 to $3,500 groups. So I didn't know if I could amend that amendment to $3,500.
You can propose an amendment to the amendment. You propose to reduce the dollar figure to $3,500?
That's correct.
Okay. Is there a second to that amendment? I see a second to that. So the way this works is we work backwards through the proposals. So we have an amendment to the amendment to vote first, or discuss further if you want that number. But we can't put another amendment into this. So right now we're at the $3,500 figure. Are you ready for that question? Mr. Matteau, you wish to speak to the amendment?
I have a question for you.
Yes.
How tight is the limit when speaking to the amendment? If someone wants to speak to the overall issue that might influence a vote on the amendment, how do you know?
Well, the process at this point is we limit it just to the dollar figure. We'll work backwards up the chain. We'll get to the main motion, and then we can do this all over again. We can amend the main motion and do all of that. So, but right now we're just voting on amending the amendment. If we amend the amendment, then that becomes the amendment. We vote whether to do that to the main motion. So first issue, let's get this cleared up. All those in favor of reducing the amount appropriated to $3,500, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay? I believe the ayes have it. The ayes do have it. So Marion's amendment is now amended to be a $3,500 amendment. We still haven't amended the main motion though. So now we're back to the amended amendment. We're voting that. So all those in favor now of amending the main motion. We've got the amendment on the floor, but to amend the main motion, we have to vote that $3,500 figure again. So all those in favor of amending the main motion, the 7534.
Can we have a discussion on it?
You can have a discussion on it, but you're limited to the dollar figure.
Yeah.
You can propose, since we've dealt with the amendment to the amendment, we can propose another amendment to the amendment if you want. But right now we're at 3,500. So you wish to discuss?
I'm just curious if anybody has any discussion. It felt like you were rushing the process.
We're not rushing. In fact, we're taking it slow here. After we get done with this, we will be back to discussion of the main motion, the whether we want to give any money at all part of the discussion.
Okay.
So amending the 9534 number down to 35. That's the amendment on the floor right now. Yes. Bearing in mind, we're just discussing the amendment. Okay.
I'm Rachel Cohen. I'm questioning where the money, that amount comes from. So the original amount is based on $3 per person, sort of, I don't know what to call it, like head count. This number's plucked at random from the sky, as far as I can tell. What's the justification? These other ones, nobody said this is so many dollars per person or so many cents per person. It seems as though these other organizations have a need for a certain amount of money, and they ask for the amount of money that they need to do their programming. Why is this one different?
Yeah, they were perilously close to the general discussion, but I think to the extent we're discussing the amendment, I guess your query, where'd you get 3,500?
That's $1 a person someday when we get 3,500 people in town. Does that answer your question?
Get to work out there. Maybe a few more people.
We can set a goal that if they can get to and really prove that they're bringing jobs in, and we get 3,500 people living in town, God bless it, I'll be the first to make the $10,000 motion.
Thank you. Ms. Gifford.
Charlotte Gifford. I just wonder, in terms of the process of amendments, when we start tinkering with money, if we can even anticipate whether we'll be successful or not. It sort of alludes to the previous idea. If the organization needs X and we offer them 1/3 X out of that budget, we can't necessarily be surprised if they don't meet the goals that they said they were going to try to achieve.
Okay. Further discussion. Yes, up here. Ms. Williams.
Sorry.
This is Betsy Williams on Westminster West Road. And I'll just say from the start, I haven't decided what I feel about this particular topic, but the argument being given about why to reduce it to 3,500 feels a little weak to me, because what it sounds like somebody's saying, and please correct me if I'm not understanding this, but I'm hearing that's what they should ask for because that's what everybody else asks for, basically. And every organization is different, and what their needs are different, and what the resources that are available to them and where they get those are different. So I'm kind of not clear why we're just sort of saying that's the amount we give, and that's the only amount we should give out, and that's why we should reduce this, because that doesn't feel like a very good argument to me.
Further discussion. Do you want to respond?
We realize that we actually have supported them in the past, and we had another year where we didn't, and then last year we cut them out in half. And if we didn't have that to go by, I would say, yeah, let's go for the 97, see what they did. Well, I guess my point was, I didn't see we had much value at the 4,700 that we paid them last year. And I didn't see them seeing they were going to correct that direction. That's what bothers me. Do I still support the idea of what they're doing? Yes, I do. I just got to see a little more proof that we did, what did we get for the 4,700 last year? I didn't see it.
Mr. Gregg, Schuyler, yeah.
John Gregg, I'm wondering, on the SEVCA handout, it says every community is asked to fund at $3 per capita. I wonder if you could tell us how many towns in Windham County to date have funded you at $3 per capita.
I think Ms. Stromson, would you care to respond to that?
Yes.
I have to defer to my town meeting expert, Kristen Mihalich. So 14 towns to date. We send a letter asking every community, and we visit 18 select boards this year. We're not that big a staff. We're able to get to 18. And then some of them just put us in the budget. Some of them just send us a check. And then we petition and visit the town meetings as requested.
I'm not sure that answers my question. How many have been approved, as in last
No, 14 communities have funded us, yes.
last year?
Yes, no, not all at $3 a head. So, Westminster at $1.50, Brattleboro at $2, and the rest at $3.
Okay, Mr. Fuller.
I'm Woodbridge Fuller. I live in Westminster. This actually seems like a program that should go through our public schools and chambers of commerce, rather than bringing an isolated entity in.
Yeah, get friendly with that mic.
Is that better?
Yep.
Anyway, I would prefer work like this goes on in our public schools, starting age 1 or less, and continue on up through chambers of commerce, which are just that. They're chambers of commerce, and I believe this money being asked is to support similar ideas. I would rather keep them closer to home. Thank you.
Thank you. Further discussion of Article 13, the amendment to Article 13. Yes, Ms. Dazell.
As I recall, last year, Brattleboro was asked for $1.50 a head, which is why, or $1.60, which is why we reduced the amount to $4,700. We cut it in half. And I don't see that the benefits have increased at all for the town of Westminster. So I see no reason to fund $9,500. I think $3,500 is a much more appropriate figure.
Thank you. Further discussion on the amendment. So we're just talking about the $3,500. Yes, Ms. Whalen.
Patty Whalen. I have to say I'm kind of scratching my head about this, and I've been party to this discussion, as most of us here, for the last few years. I'm not troubled by how they got to $3,500. I understood that it was meant to be not so much based on need, because frankly, for all of those organizations, the amount of money they're asking for is not really based on their need. They all have greater needs than that. I support and I appreciate the fact that Craig has moved forward to a lower and more reasonable amount. But I have to address about this. I just find there's something very disrespectful here every year. You know, Mr. Allen has given each year now a very clear request for assistance from you, which I think is fair and appropriate. I the reason why I'm scratching my head is because I also understand the regional arguments, and that we should be, we're not just a community, we're part of a larger community, and I respect that. But you have, every time different people come, or if you've been the same people, I apologize, but he has made this request. Drop him a dime. Could you just call and meet with him and see what you have to offer? I just find every year to hear him saying, we get nothing from you, and you coming and saying, well, never mind that. This is what we do for everybody else, so pitch in. It just feels disrespectful to me. So I support the lowered amendment. I appreciate the fact that you have reduced it. I'm not troubled by how you got there. Better luck next year, I guess. Thank you.
Further discussion on the amendment. Are you ready to deal with the dollar figure? Yes. Okay, the amendment now, the amended amendment is to amend the main motion to reduce the dollar amount to be appropriated to $3,500. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay? Hear none, the amendment is passed. So Article 13 is now to see if the voters of the Town of Westminster will raise and appropriate the sum of $3,500 for the support of SEVCA. Are you ready for the question? Mr. Matteau, I saw him first, then Ms. Schreiber, then Mr. Conway. We'll get around.
Thank you. Jim Matto. The first time this motion came up, I was fairly critical of it. And just a disclosure that CVEDs came into being when I was director of the London Regional Planning Commission in partnership with BDCC. And I've had a problem from day one with the challenge that they have, and I don't envy them, is to how to come to one small town in one larger region and say, this is precisely how much of this effort benefits you opposed to the next guy. All the time we worked on it, I was cognizant of the fact that I lived in Westminster, but I worked in Brattleboro. Half my time was spent in Montpelier. And it was a little weird. And looking at journey to work data from the census, we used to look at a lot. And it was always startling to me that, folklore aside, the journeys to work from residents from New Hampshire to working in Vermont and Vermont working in New Hampshire were about equal. I can't say they are now. I haven't looked at it mercifully in about 10 years. It really is a regional economy, and it really is difficult. So personally, I don't have any trouble with the numbers being changed the way they were. I'm going to support it, and I hope others will, but I also want to reissue the challenge to CVEDs that I know it's hard and I couldn't do it, but if you can give every town a better handle on how it doesn't have to be how many jobs are in my town, but how does the economy benefit my town? Where do the people here go to work? How do those places benefit? If you benefited a company X in town Y, how many Westminster residents might go to that, might work there? There are a lot of ways to get a handle on that, and it probably would give you a better reception in every town, not just this one. Again, I couldn't do it and I wouldn't try because I don't have the skills for that, but I think there are ways to get those data together. And just let us get more comfortable with what we're being asked to do. Thank you.
Ms. Schreiber, in the middle up in the back, Scott.
Can you hear me? Okay. Tatjana Schreiber, Westminster West. I think I was the one who proposed to reduce it by half last year, and it was because I didn't understand, again from the presentation, how Westminster was benefiting by this, and I still don't really understand it. I'm sort of surprised that given that we reduced the amount by half last year, that SEVCA didn't take the initiative to meet with the Westminster Selectboard. It sounds like it didn't, since we were one of the towns that had some questions. But I do really support the concept of workforce development and on a regional basis, and think it's very important. One of the questions I have is the work that you mentioned, it was being done in the schools, working with the students to help them with their resumes and to help them get internships and that sort of thing. I wondered if you could speak to that a little more, to say what work was actually done in the schools and whether there were any Westminster students who improved their resumes or got internships.
Yeah, does some SEVCA wish to respond to that? Yes, Skylar, why don't we pop back here and then we'll get over to Mr. Conway.
Good afternoon. My name is Bobby Kilburn. I am a resident of Westminster. In full disclosure, I am also the Director of Finance and Grant Management at EDCC in support of SEVCA as well. I did attend 2 select board meetings along with BDCC, these lovely ladies here with me. We presented twice over the past year. We have since met with a select board member to roll out the community facilities grant and opportunity that we have. Additionally, our workforce development young man is also in the high schools. He attends this high school on a regular basis, and I can speak to that every student in this building now has a resume, knows how to write a resume, and is also starting to build their soft skills, which is a requirement to, as we all know, to be out in the workforce. So I think it's a little bit disheartening to hear that our select board is saying that they don't hear from the organization. That's not accurate. And I personally take offense to that, since I did attend some of the select board meetings where we did make presentations as to what's happening in the region, what's happening in our community, and how SEVCA can support the town offering up our services. So I would just throw that out there to keep that in the back of your mind when you consider today's discussion.
Mr. Conway, are you still? Does anyone on the select board wish to respond to that?
I just want to say that, yes, we never said that they didn't come before us. They came in several. Yes, they came. Can you hear me? No. Now? No. Yes, they came to the select board and gave several in-depth presentations, so it's inaccurate to say that they did not come before us. They did.
Okay, Mr. Conway.
Ian Conway, Westminster West. I see a lot in the SEVCA's brochure about large employers. I'd like to speak to the smaller employers like myself, the service trades, which have a very vibrant future because they're not going away. They also involve more training, more education. I know I've had a heck of a time trying to get help by any of the other service contractors I talk to are in the same business, and I'm hoping that SEVCA would address the smaller and the micro businesses, the service businesses as well, and I will plan on contacting them and seeing what they can do for me, and hopefully they will be reaching out to other micro, small service businesses.
Thank you, Mr. Conway. Further discussion of Article 13. Are you ready for the question at the $3,500 level? Seeing no further discussion, all those in favor of Article 13 to see if the voters of the Town of Westminster will raise and appropriate the sum of $3,500 for the support of Southeastern Vermont economic development. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay? Nay. I believe the ayes have it. The ayes do have it. Article 13 is passed at the $3,500 amended level, and we are recessed for lunch. Now that I have a full complement of select board members supervising and paying close attention to the business of the town. Next up, Article 14. Mr. Hughes. Mr. Hughes moves Article 14. Is there a second? Article 14 is moved and seconded to see if the voters of the Town of Westminster will adopt the reserve fund balance policy as presented. And when it says as presented, it means on page 10 of your town report.
Thank you.
Mr. Hughes, you wish to speak to the motion?
Yes.
Please.
So to remind everyone that last year a taxpayer put it on the floor and it was voted on that we come up with, try to plot a solution for what was deemed to be a reserve balance fund, which you have now been noticed and should have a copy of. I'm going to begin with the premise of this fund, the purpose, the objective, and the contingency reserve expenditure. So the Selectboard of Westminster believes that a sound financial management requires that sufficient funds be maintained by the town for unanticipated expenditures and revenue shortfalls that may occur throughout the course of the fiscal year. And of course, they can be caused by almost anything, but routinely it could be an economic downturn, a natural disaster, or something that we don't foresee. Now, in meeting this objective of the contingency referred fund, we want to be legally respectful of Vermont code. So we are following, or attempting to at least graph to, the 24 Vermont VSA, section 2804A. The Select Board objective here is for adequate funds to be set aside in this reserve fund in a planned and consistent manner. The amount will not exceed 20% of the amount of the annual budget and will be kept at the amount by the yearly surplus. There is no intent here to increase tax funding or tax revenues. The contingency reserve fund expenditures, to this end, the Select Board will only use the working capital to alleviate anticipated short-term budgetary issues such as revenue shortfall and expenses between taxation and those unforeseen taxes. So, a couple of quick examples, right? 2011, Irene comes in, does incredible amount of damage. Remember, and in that process, we have damage to roads, bridges, infrastructure. Our road crew, our first responders, they're all working out there hard. They're all putting themselves at risk. And the amount of money that can be caused, the damage can be caused from such a disaster, as in this particular case, requires immediate liquidity for which we may not have on hand. And we certainly do not wish to ingest a large amount of debt that could, for lack of a better word, be lethal. But we have to meet those expenditures when they come up. Sandy is another, extreme example of what can happen. And lastly, we're talking about the financial cycle. So, unfortunately, this gentleman here, myself, 30 years in this industry in finance. And I can go back, we talked about history earlier, and the importance of history and historic training methodology in my profession. I started at the height of the savings and loan disaster. 1,000 U.S. savings and loans that affected this community, the community I grew up with, California, Oregon, every state in the unit, in the country. Huge economic problems that affected all municipalities, okay? Sometimes we forget that. 2001, savings, the tech wreck, 1998, long-term capital management. My office was in the trade center when it went down, 2001. You forget the economic damage that caused, the change of the economics that made to our national infrastructure. And then, of course, we cannot forget the damage that was recently done to us in 2008 and 2010. All of these have ripple effects, my fellow citizens. And these are reasons why to make serious considerations about how we look at our budget every year. It's not just about wealth, it's not just about risk management as we react to it. It's more about risk control. And the difference between the two is in a risk control methodology, we're at least looking ahead to make sure we have something put aside that alleviates these things we know we're going to meet. And adding that, the risk management portion of it, so we have good policies in place that allow us to massage and meet these expectations in an elastic format that enables us to raise capital if needed without impairing the financial good name of Westminster. So that being said, sir?
Thank you. Anybody who can use the term elastic in reference to money has got my vote. Any other comments? Mr. Major, I've lost my runner.
Stephen Major. Just to, again, clarify this whole reserve fund thing, of this reserve fund policy and the reserve fund which would be created thereby, does that include the other fund balances on page 33? Those are the reappraisal fund, tricentennial fund, emergency management fund, restoration fund, E99?
No, it does not. So
this would be an entire new class of reserve fund to be added to the town. I guess I'm concerned about all that money being stashed away. What we have is a whole lot of very small funds. The Maple Grove Grange Trust Fund, the Military and Flag Fund, the New Cemetery Fund, and they won't all have the same disaster at the same time. So what we do need a flexible reserve fund, but it would be reasonable to combine that into one fund for emergency uses, as opposed to, and I do agree some of those have more specific funds, cemeteries or whatever, but a emergency management fund, if we have an emergency management fund and we have a reserve fund for emergencies, and we have a bridge rehabilitation fund, which would also be available to, bridges could be funded by the reserve fund, we're kind of duplicating. And I was wondering whether we could consolidate all these funds so that we would have a clearer idea of the financial picture of the town and what is saved, and also a single pot of money that could be saved for emergencies. Thank you.
Further discussion of Article 14. Do you wish to respond?
You know, I'll throw a layman's term because I'm definitely not trained like Kevin is, but when this started with the rainy day fund, because when we designated that, it can only be used for that. So this is really more of a house of how we've been doing things. So when you do the bridge, it can only be used for the bridge. If the equipment is only used for equipment. So once we said rainy day, it can only be used for emergency. This is really a general fund that every year we sit and say, how much are we going to carry over to start the year, the next year, to just have it. And this is just more of a guideline that says this is what we'll carry over. Not that we weren't carrying this money over, but every year we'd have that discussion. I don't know if that answers your question.
Further discussion on Article 14. You ready for the question? Yes, Mr. Wickberg.
Bob Wickberg. Just to clarify one thing, Craig, you said if a fund is established for, say, bridges, it can only be used for bridges. I assume you mean it can only be used for bridges without a vote of taxpayers.
What the town meeting giveth, the town meeting can taketh away. Now, that's what I was always told about reserve funds.
So if, say, we've got this fund that's $129,000 for reappraisal and we have another hurricane blow through town, we could always hold a town meeting and say, well, we're gonna raid that fund because we need some money, and we can always replenish the fund later on.
Some of these funds are subject to state regulation, so I have to amend what I said earlier, that some of them are under state restrictions, like that's a matching fund for the bridge, so that's not quite as elastic as something.
Well, the biggest fund here on page 33 is the reappraisal fund. I don't know of any state law that requires us to reserve money to do a reappraisal.
I think I can answer that one too. Let me have Russ answer to it because you're not looking at the revenue coming in from some of these too.
The reappraisal fund is granted from the state every year in small portions. That's a cumulative of, since 2011, we've gotten $125,000 from the state. That is not able to be taken to fix a road. That is only for reappraisals, and it's funded by the state, and they will watch that.
Okay, so how much of these funds is in fact, you know, this kind of goes back to Stephen's point, how much of these are in fact restricted in that way, and how much of them are just funds that we created because we wanted to?
The reappraisal fund is what we just talked about, is restricted. The tricentennial fund, to the best of my knowledge, is a restricted fund, was created by an individual for specific purposes. The emergency management fund, we have capabilities of taking that money for any emergency we have. The restoration fund is again granted to the town clerks, which has got a restricted amount and how you use it. The E911 fund, we could definitely take. Recreational committee fund, we could take. Retreatment fund, as long as it had to do with pavement and restoration of a road, we could take that. Bridge rehabilitation, same thing. Cemetery fund is one I'm not positive. We as a taxpayer had voted to separate each plot dollar that came in into 3 categories. And Ally, do you know, is that a restricted fund? It cannot be used for an emergency. One thing I do have to say is, if we were able to take these funds back in 2011, we would have. But Doreen Woodward, our town clerk of many years, knew exactly what we had to do, but we took out a substantial loan, as we all know, because we couldn't take from these. And that's what this is supposed to help us through a burden time if we do have another crisis. So I can keep going. Town garage fund, that was created by us. I'm sure we could take that. Permanent care fund, I'm not positive of that, but I'm assured that it grows with interest from the actual fund that retains it. Maple Grove definitely is a Grange Trust fund that could not be taken, and military flag and fund would not be able to be taken. So hopefully that answers it. And so
Okay, I had one other point which had to do with cash flow. My understanding is if the town runs a surplus at the end of 1 year, we've already held the town meeting for that year, so that surplus basically sits around for a year, well, almost a year, until the following March, and then it gets put back into the budget for the following fiscal year. So basically that money sits there for an entire year. So there is some excess cash built into the system anyway. As long as you don't run a deficit, of course. If you do, then you don't have that money to play with, but it's just another consideration in all of this. I think you already do have reserves, basically.
Yeah, I would just say that actually that's where the money will come from to go into that reserve fund.
Right. If we pray.
Yeah, so we're on the same line with that, right? Yeah. I mean, this is not all going to be taken all at once and put in there as it seems to be in here. It is, as we are able to put money in that fund, that is when it will go into the fund. And, you know, often there are excess revenues which we weren't planning on, and that we could use that to go into that fund. But that the limit, the numbers that you see are the limits for that fund.
Further discussion.
Arthur Davis. Just to make sure that I clarify this for myself and other people if they have this question too. So it's not necessarily, I mean, it is creating a new fund, but it's not necessarily changing the practice of the select board in surplus times, but it's just kind of clarifying where that money goes. Is that correct?
Correct. Very wise boy.
Further discussion of Article 14. Yes, Mr. Major.
I'd like to propose an amendment that the Emergency Management Fund on page 33, the Retreatment Fund, the Bridge Rehabilitation Fund, the Town Garage Fund, and the Permanent Care Fund be added to this reserve balance fund to clarify our books.
I think, as in the first instance, I'm going to call the proposed amendment not germane, out of order, because you're, at that level, you're dealing, it should have been warned that that was part of the deal, that you were collapsing these other funds, because clearly there are other considerations in the management of all of them. I mean, I would certainly suggest that the select board look into this and come back to us next year, but I think for this year on this article, that's a bridge too far for me. Unless the meeting wishes to overrule me, which is always its prerogative. Further discussion on Article 14. Yes, Ms. Hawes.
Hi, Jessie Haas, Westminster West. I think you guys have been good stewards of our money, and I guess I feel like if you think this is the wise way to be thinking ahead and having a cushion, I want to support that.
Further discussion on Article 14. Yes, Ms. Harlow.
And the way I understand it is, if we establish, correct me if I'm wrong, we establish the fund, then every year in the budget we would have a certain amount that we would put into the fund. Correct? It would be a line item.
You can report what you put in there from what you received, but you won't know that by town meeting. So you can report from last year what you had.
Yeah, Russ, could you speak in?
Well, then you'd be saying that all of our surplus would be going into the fund, right?
Russ, you need to.
Yeah, yeah. Because what I'm thinking is that the voters might have a chance to say, no, we don't want to put 20,000 in this year, or we do. Anyway.
The way it was presented last year was that we need to come up with a policy to give the select board the authority to put in monies that they didn't deem necessary for anything else and that we had in surplus. So it was to give us the option, slowly but surely, to build up a fund to protect us from any shortfalls that we might have in an emergency. So it doesn't restrict the select board to say that we had costs of something else that we needed to bring in front of you. but we didn't need to put all of it into the emergency fund. So it still gives us that leeway of making sure that we cover all our emergencies and our capital expenses.
Hopefully that helps. Further discussion of Article 14. Mr. Mehta.
Am I understanding correctly then that you're in July and there's a surplus, and ordinarily you would wait until the following March to bring it to here instead of it goes into the budget to reduce taxes or whatever? In this case, you would then be able in July to say, okay, we've got $100,000 surplus, to use a nice round number. We're going to put 50 into this fund, and we're going to bring the other 50 to town meeting in March as we traditionally did, or all or none of the above. But that would be, you wouldn't have to wait until March to put it into the fund, is my question. Is that correct? That's right.
They're all saying yes. Further discussion. Yes, Mr. Conklin.
Can you use the surplus for emergency? So what's the purpose of the surplus? I mean, the emergency fund. It's basically to ensure that we have enough. It's just basically, it's been what we've been doing. I mean, Paul was even here. We were talking about, you know, we've been doing it. It's just that we didn't realize, and I think people ask, what do we carry over? Well, every year in June, the end of June, we sit there and decide, well, what do we need to have in the coffin to continue to the next year, and what are we giving back? And you're right, when you give it back, it skips a year, really. It goes to the following year. But I think what we're trying to do is make it more exposure where you're seeing what we're doing. It's transparent, if that can answer the question.
Further discussion of Article 14. Yes, up in the back. Where'd my runner go? There we are. I know he probably doesn't move any faster, but he takes less steps.
Mark Steinhardt, Hartley Hill. I think you just said that the board could take some of this money in July and put it into the fund. Can you confirm that?
July 1st starts the next year. We have to make that decision by June 30th.
But the gentleman over there asked, could you just take...
He was off by a day. I think what he was saying was, you know, the next year starts July 1st, but we have to make it by June 30th.
Just clarification, I think it says in your plan that annually the select board will propose funding of the contingency reserve through the surplus of the town budget to maintain the balance, etc., and presented to this meeting, to the voters. So how can you put the money in reserve before the meeting of the voters? I think I read it right. The gentleman over there asked if you had $100,000 surplus in July, if you could put it in the reserve fund, and the answer I thought was yes.
Yes, and that's basically what we're calling reserve fund, the same fund that we look at every year to carry over to start the next year. You don't empty your checkbook out June 30th and start the next year because we get taxation and everything else. So every year we decide, if we end up at the end of the year and we look in this $400,000 because we had a good year, we decide that maybe we want to keep 150 and give the rest back to the voters, which would then carry over, like he said, to the next year. It's basically, that's what it is the end of the year of what are we going to carry over into the regular funds.
So you'll propose that at any time during the year as per this proposal?
Yeah.
But then it has to be put before the voters at town meeting?
Where are you looking? He's asked us to read page 11. Where are you reading?
Top of the voters. Contingency.
Under the continuing reserve fund? Yeah, why don't you read it, because I'm sure he's going to ask you a question on it too. You got it?
Okay, so the last paragraph in the policy proposal draft, it states, annually, the Select Board will propose funding of the contingency reserve fund through the surplus of the town budget to maintain the balance of a maximum amount authorized by the voters. It doesn't go in front of the voters, it's the maximum that you all agree to today, or not, and we'll keep that coming, and they deem the amount appropriate to keep our capital reserve good and our contingency reserve fund growing. So it will be up to the select boards and their discretion, as it has been forever. But this makes it a lot more transparent that this is the money that we're carrying over for emergencies.
Further discussion of Article 14. You ready for the question? Seeing no hands, Article 14, to see if the voters of the Town of Westminster will adopt the reserve fund balance policy as presented. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. Article 14 is carried. Article 15, to transact any other proper business to be brought before the Town of Westminster Meeting. Mr. Beebe, do you have something?
Anyone with their town report.
Please use the mic.
Oh, I can do that.
It's on. It's on.
Anybody that has their town report, please go to page 2. This dashing and handsome gentleman whose picture is there is we recognize and we dedicate the town report to. And he'll be coming up here shortly anyway on the next meeting.
Yeah.
But just wanted to make recognition of him that your town report is dedicated to Cole Street.
Yeah.
Is there any other business to be brought before the meeting? Mr. Major. Well, I'll get back to you.
Just a note, and you may have seen flyers on your tables at lunch. The Westminster Conservation Commission over the past year has had a grant for studying the wetlands and forest flood resiliency of Westminster. And on March 14th at the Institute at 7 o'clock will be a presentation of that research done by ecologist Jeff Littleton. So you can see the results of the flood resiliency importance of the forested uplands and wetlands of Westminster. So please come. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Fuller.
Thank you. I'm Woodbridge Fuller from Westminster.
Can't hear you.
Get right up close.
Right here?
Yep.
Good, okay. I want to talk about socialism in the black market. The real pith of this is solid waste, which is still being foisted off on our town as pay as you throw. The socialism is those of us who own houses and pay taxes basically are supporting renters, which is fine with me. I believe in socialism long before I believe in many other forms of living. And the black market is going to occur because of there are people like me, and there's several more in this general community who put out maybe one bag of trash a month. And so I have 52 stickers, and I use 4 of them. And I end up with 40 plus in the course of a year. And pretty soon there's going to be a black market for people selling these to people who don't have them, who throw away too much trash. And I urge we somehow in time figure out how to do pay as you throw as it really means. Thank you.
Yes, Ms. Shamus. Right here next to you. Right.
Barry Shamus. I have a couple questions about page 37 on the town clerk
One is, it says the total registered voters is 2,497, and I'm curious how many residents are in the town of voting age. The second question is, the Green Mountain passports issues. What are Green Mountain passports? And let's see, what was the third question? Are the births that happen actually in the town, or the people that are residents of the town that have given birth? Thank you.
All right, Green Mountain passports.
Speak into a microphone, yeah. Yes.
Is it on? Hello?
No.
Now?
Yeah.
The Green Mountain passports are a little card that you come in and can get at the office, and you have to be 62 or over or a veteran, and it gets you into state parks and what have you in the state for free, right? State, $2. It's $2 that goes to us, the town clerks, and then you can go throughout the state and go to the different parks and that kind of thing, hiking trails, that kind of stuff.
Is it annual?
It's once you do it, you have it. What was your other question, Barry?
The registered voters are 2,497, and how many people are approximately voting age?
They have to be, well, you have to be 18 at the time.
That's the census figure that you for how many people in town.
You want to know how many people are in town, or you want to know how old they are?
Of the number of people who are of voting age in the town of Westminster, how many are registered, I think is the question.
No, that's not.
No, the question is, how many people are of voting age, so I can compare that to how many are registered.
That's not a statistic that we keep. I don't.
What's the census in the town?
About how many people are in this town?
3178.
3178. Okay, that's a big number difference.
Kids.
What was your third question, Barry?
Births, were they in town or out of town?
They were, the births are residents.
Yes. Okay.
They could have been born in Springfield or Brattleboro, but
Right. Okay.
yeah.
So the third question. The third question is.
She just answered
Oh,
it.
what did she say?
She said it's, if they're a resident here and they had a baby anywhere, it counts.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other business? Yes. Two hands right up here. I don't know who's first, but Ruth or Tatiana, either one.
Ruth Grandy back here. I just want to return to an observation made by Mr. Fuller regarding the black market and the stickers for the rubbish. Anyone who has the idea of making a few bucks off of those stickers wants to be concerned about who they black market to. It's my understanding that these stickers are all registered to the present owners of those stickers, who will be held responsible for what's in that trash. So I did want to emphasize the fact that this is not an easy street for the marketing of those stickers. You've got to have some conscience.
So be warned. Ms. Schreiber.
Well, I have a question about that too, because I also have a zillion extra stickers and I don't know what to do with them. But my question is concerning the Westminster West Town Hall. I wondered if it would be possible, if anybody knows, could give a brief update on the status, because I saw that $7,000 had been spent on bringing it up to insurance compliance, but I just wondered what was the status of repair and maintenance of that building.
Anyone wish to speak to that, to the town hall article? Anybody know what's going on in Westminster? Well, Mr. Ewald, you're pretty close there. Maybe the two go together.
I think all the work has been finished in the Westminster West Town Hall. Excuse me. It's open to the public now. Yes, the lock has been removed. and all the necessary repairs were done so that it could be insured. That was the goal. And do you want to talk about?
Well, that's about the town hall, but.
Yeah, we were.
I don't know.
There's
Do you want
also.
other people to talk first, or?
Well,
This is other business, so.
okay, well, about the Westminster West Town Hall, it's, we can use it now, it still needs some paint, still needs some maintenance. We have a committee of 8 that oversees it. So we're painting the sills, painting the windows. I think this year there's $1,000 in the budget to help maintain it. That was there for years. And we didn't use it, but then it went away because we didn't use it, but now it's back. So I think there's $1,000 available for paint. And most of the stuff that gets done there is volunteers. I mean, basically, it was Cole Streeter went in and we got the electrical fixed up. And basically, it was the fire marshal wanted things repaired in order for us to get a CO on it. So we got our CO and we're back to being able to use it. And can I get...
Absolutely.
So in the town hall renovation now, I know that you're not doing your meetings at the town hall. When do you think you're going to start getting the select board meetings back?
Great question. We just got the heating bids, and we are going to pick, these folks are going to pick a contractor shortly, and then once there's heat upstairs, the meetings will be put back there.
Okay.
It'll be upstairs on the second floor.
And I noticed that in a select board minutes that you were going to have a phase 3. What is that going to entail, and when are you going to come to the voters for that?
Can you hear me?
Yep.
So we have, correct me if I'm wrong, about $200,000 more work on the town hall to do. For this year, I believe we're going to have $150,000 surplus. So the question is, what do we want to do with that surplus, and do we want to put all or part of it toward finishing the town?
Russ is saying phase 3 is the reposition of the office. In other words, everything will have heat, air conditioning upstairs, downstairs, the rooms will be in structure, then they're going to move the walls and actually set the permit. That's phase 3.
And will you go to the town for that money, or are you going to use that from your reserve money that you put in the reserve fund?
We're having that conversation now, we're not there.
Thank you.
Further other business? Yes, up in the back here.
Hi, Bryn Austin. I'm sorry to open this kettle of fish, but I've been a resident in Westminster for 9 years, and since moving here, and I love it here, we've had such trouble trying to get internet. And I suspect that I'm not alone. The 7 residents of my little stretch of Rear Road have been actively trying to work together to get coverage. And I guess my question for the select board as you head towards this next year is, could we possibly do an assessment of who else in our town is still struggling to get good internet coverage? Because I feel like we've reached the end of possibilities as individuals or even small groups. And if we had a better sense of the whole town's needs, we might be able to advocate more strongly for the powers that be. So I would appreciate any help we could get with that in the year to come.
Thank you. Other business. Mr. Fuller again.
I will say that the idea for giving our stickers to other people actually came from Russ in the first place. And I think he did it in all innocence and honesty, not realizing, because I certainly didn't, how good ideas can frequently go bad.
That was actually Russ's evil twin.
Yeah. Russ has been after us for quite a while. If anybody doesn't have him, bring him to the town hall so he's responsible for reassigning him to somebody, if that makes sense, Woody. Okay? We're not saying that you go do it. So Russ is happy. He's always said that. If you got anything left over, bring it back. And we have some people in need, but when he gives them out, he's now giving them back out just like he would the first time. He's keeping track of who he gave them to. Okay? I know you wanted that black market. I know you did, really.
Any other business? Mr. Whitford.
I just wanted to say that if you're taking back the stickers and giving them to somebody else, you're defeating the pay as you throw even more.
Other business. Is there anything more to come before the town meeting? Seeing nothing, I will consider that the business of the town meeting for 2019 is done, and we will proceed on to the business of Fire District Number 3. Thank you all. Article 16. Who's going to move that? Mr. Green? Mr. Farlow? Let's do it. Mr.
Move the article as warned.
Yes.
Move the article as warned.
Is the article seconded? Yes. Article 16 is moved and seconded to hear the reports of the Town Fire District Number 3 and take action thereon. Although, actually, we don't take action, we just talk about it. But is there any item to be raised in regard to the reports of Town Fire District Number 3? Seeing nothing, all those in favor of approving the reports of Town Fire District Number 3, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Article 17. Mr. Hackett?
I move Article 17 as proposed.
And Article 17 is moved and seconded to see whether Town Fire District Number 3 shall authorize and instruct its Prudential Committee and Treasurer to borrow money if necessary to meet current expenses on the credit of the district in anticipation of the collection of taxes and or the receipt of any state or federal funds, which I have heard referred to in statewide meetings as the no-brainer article. Is there discussion on Article 17? All those in favor of Article 17, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Article 17 is approved. Article 18. Mr. Hackett?
I move Article 18 as written.
Okay, and seconded. Article 18 is moved and seconded to see whether the Town Fire District Number 3 shall raise and appropriate money to pay the indebtedness and other expenses of the district for the fiscal year beginning July 1, 2019 and ending June 30, 2020, and if so, how much? So I'm going to need an immediate amendment to put in a number. Okay.
I move that number to be $257,540.
Mr. Hackett moves to amend the article to insert the number $257,540. Is there a second? The amendment is moved and seconded. All those in favor of the amendment, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay? The amendment is approved. Article 18 now includes the number. Is there discussion of the proposal for the fire district budget for the year? Seeing none, all those in favor of Article 18 as amended to see whether Fire District Number 3 shall raise and appropriate money to pay the indebtedness and other general expenses of the district for fiscal year beginning July 1, 2019 and ending June 30, 2020 in the amount of $257,540. Please say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Article 18 appears to carry. Article 18 is approved. Article 19, is there any other business proper to be brought before Town Fire District Number 3? Seeing none, I will rule Article 19 concluded and the annual meeting of Town Fire District Number 3 concluded. One further comment from Mr. Hackett.
It's kind of a tough thing, but we could take a moment of silence. As most of you know, the town of Berwick, Maine lost a fireman yesterday, a captain. Thank you. The reason why I bring this up is I'm going to ask the firemen and their families to stand up right now, please. That means you, Rail. The ladies and gentlemen of this department contribute a ton of hours. And as you saw just before the town meeting was going on, they had 2 calls in a row. They don't get much for the services they provide us, and I'm one that's, and I know I speak for the board, very proud to serve on this committee for them, so thank you.
Thank you. That's it. The Fire District meeting is adjourned.